Hello and welcome to CGTN's special coverage on the Kazan BRICS Summit. I'm Li Dongning in Beijing.
I'm Pan Deng.
Well, the 16th BRICS Summit is now underway in the Russian city of Kazan, and it's the first in-person BRICS gathering since the group expanded its membership in January.
The BRICS has 10 member nations now, and over 30 countries have either formally applied for or expressed interest in membership.
And this year's summit, which runs until Thursday, a narrow format meeting will be held in the coming hours.
The BRICS mechanism is the world's most important platform for solidarity and cooperation between emerging markets and developing countries.
Right, so how will the broader Global South promote shared development and uphold the multilateral governance systems?
That's a crucial question indeed, and we will explore that in this special program, Building an Inclusive World. Right, and top of the today's coverage is Chinese President Xi Jinping arriving in the Russian city of Kazan. He's attending the 16th BRICS Summit, which runs through Thursday. Russian officials greeted President Xi at the airport, including the head of the Republic of Tatarstan, Rustam Minikhanov, Tatarstan Prime Minister Alexei Pesoshin, and also the mayor of Kazan, Isur Metshin. Guards of honor lined up on both sides of a red carpet to salute the Chinese leader. Russian youths dressed in national costumes welcomed him with traditional courtesy. And President Xi will attend multiple events, including small and large group talks and the BRICS Plus dialogue, and also deliver important addresses. During his meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin on Tuesday, Chinese President Xi Jinping emphasized the enduring friendship between China and Russia.
President Xi highlighted the deep historical ties between China and Russia, which remain strong despite global uncertainties. Xi praised the BRICS cooperation mechanism as a vital platform for emerging markets and developing countries, driving global equality and inclusive economic globalization. President Xi commended Russia for its role as the BRICS chair and expressed optimism about working with Putin and other leaders to strengthen strategic collaboration, promote unity, and seize new opportunities for the Global South. He reiterated China's commitment to advancing the BRICS agenda and contributing to the shared future of humanity. He noted the upcoming BRICS Summit as the first with new member states, marking a milestone in expanding cooperation.
And Chinese President Xi Jinping reaffirmed that China will always be a reliable friend and partner to Laos. Xi made these remarks during a meeting with the Laos president on Tuesday in Kazan. And during the meeting, Xi praised the progress made between the two nations over the past year in areas such as connectivity, trade, investment, and people-to-people exchanges. And he also highlighted the significance of China-Laos relations within China's neighboring diplomacy, expressing a commitment to strengthening strategic trust, deepening cooperation, and advancing the construction of a China-Laos community with a shared future. And President Tonglu noted that bilateral ties are at their strongest in history. He acknowledged China's support in contributing to Laos' economic and social development and voiced his eagerness to continue collaborating on major projects like the China-Laos Railway and the China-Laos Economic Corridor. Both leaders are in Kazan for the 16th BRICS Summit and related meetings as well.
The BRICS grouping has gained significant attention in recent years due to its growing influence in the global economy and politics. Many observers are saying that the expansion of the group represents a pivotal moment in international relations, reflecting the shifting dynamics of power towards emerging economies.
To become full members of BRICS.
On January 1st, 2024, the BRICS group welcomed 5 new members: Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. With the admission of these countries, the BRICS Plus now represents almost half of the world's population, a third of global GDP, a quarter of global trade, and 40% of global oil production. Each of the new members has a unique role to play in the bloc. Egypt and Ethiopia will bring more voices from Africa. They will lead more discussions on the region's stability, trade, and investment. Iran offers significant energy resources, especially in oil and gas. It also provides a perspective on Middle Eastern geopolitics, enhancing regional dialogues within the group. As one of the world's largest oil producers, Saudi Arabia will play a key role in global energy security discussions and foster economic diversification strategies. Its geopolitical influence in the Middle East allows it to provide insights into regional dynamics. The UAE is a major global financial and trade hub, particularly through cities like Dubai and Abu Dhabi. Its strategic location enhances connectivity between BRICS nations and global markets. The concept of BRICS originated in 2001 when economist Jim O'Neill coined the term BRIC to describe Brazil, Russia, India, and China as emerging markets with significant growth potential. The group's first official meeting took place in 2009, with South Africa becoming a member a year later, solidifying the BRICS framework. Over the years, BRICS has focused on economic cooperation, political collaboration, and cultural exchange, hosting annual summits to address global issues and foster dialogue.
Now, for more on the 16th BRICS Summit in Kazan, Russia, let's cross live to our reporters Zhao Yunfei and Huang Fei. They've been following the event very closely from on the ground. Now, let me start with you, Yunfei. Bring us up to date.
Well, Pendon, Tuesday is the first day of the BRICS summit here in Kazan. So we were seeing a bunch of arrival from the leaders from around the world. Certainly, President Xi also landed here in Kazan on Tuesday. And usually he was usually in the first day of his visit, there was nothing but just arrival on President Xi's agenda. But what makes yesterday unique was President Xi held bilateral meetings with Russian President Vladimir Putin, and both the two leaders have in-depth discussion of the talk. President Xi during the talks said that China and Russia have found the right way of neighboring countries get along with each other, and that is how the two countries are maintaining their relationship based on the alliance, no confrontation, and not target any third party. And President Xi said that can inject momentum for the development, of revitalization, and modernization of the both two countries as the world is facing transformation with a fast developing pace and sometimes turbulence. Putin mentioned that the bilateral relationship are based on equality, mutual respect, and mutual benefit. The one thing that is worth mentioning that both the two leaders have mentioned about the 80th anniversary of the founding of the United Nations and the anti-fascist war, which will come to in the next year, as both two leaders looking forward to that. So that can also tell that both the two countries recognize the UN-centered international system. Coming along for Wednesday, as today, President Xi will get a chance to speak with other BRICS leaders as he is about to attend small and large-scale meetings under the BRICS mechanism. Now back to you.
All right, thank you very much, Yunfei. Now let's talk to our reporter Huang Fei, who is in Kazan as well. So, Huang Fei, tell us more about today's agenda. What can we expect from today's both narrow and expanded format meetings?
Hello, Dongning. That's right. Well, in terms of agenda today, we're still receiving some arrivals from several countries, including the Turkish president, also presidents from Central Asia arriving closer to lunchtime. And in the afternoon, we've also got arrivals from, leaders of Belarus and Vietnam. So people are still arriving, but they're, the leaders that are already here will be meeting in various formats, different group sizes, pretty much workshopping the issues that they're most interested in talking about. And, the details are pretty shy on whether President Xi will take another bilateral meeting today or also, what he's going to talk about in his speech. But we're going to monitor that as the live feed comes through here at the media center. But in terms of the priorities in these discussions, we know that the establishment of the BRICS Bank, or the New Development Bank, is going to be a top focus. There's also discussions on building an emergency reserve fund fund, which is essentially a rainy day fund kept across different central banks of these founding members. China, in particular, is contributing $41 billion into this fund, pretty much making up almost half of the $100 billion emergency reserve. And of course, we're going to expect a final agreement on this emergency reserve fund next year in the summit in Brazil. Now, in addition to these money talks, the member nations are also going to be discussing collaboration in so-called new economy, which are, digitization, and green sectors, as well as, learning really from China's efforts in modernizing its industries and also making these tech breakthroughs despite Western containment efforts. So there's going to be a lot to talk about, and this is a rare chance for all of these world leaders to be gathered in one room. So we're going to send you more details as they come through.
All right, thank you very much, Huang Fei, and earlier Zhao Yunfei reporting from Kazan. As our reporter just mentioned, the summit in Kazan is the first gathering of BRICS countries following its expansion to include 5 new members. CGTN spoke to some top officials of BRICS nations about their expectations for this year's summit.
I would say that Thailand could be a bridge that connects BRICS with the ASEAN region for unlimited economic opportunities. With China as one of BRICS key members, I am certain that our journey with BRICS beyond the summit will move forward smoothly.
The BRICS, since you asked also about the BRICS, is a new group which is very important and whose cohesiveness is essential for a peaceful world.
We see that the payment system has recently become politicized. Western countries restrict payments and money transfers through banks. They limit the use of the financial message transmission system. Therefore, in order to ensure the independence and stability of our trade relations, there is a question of creating our own settlement system, our own system for transmitting financial messages, so that there will be no risks in our trading, and there were no risks to trade with the BRICS countries. We discussed this issue with our partners and colleagues in the ministries of finance. In general, we agree that we will prepare a report to our leaders. Both their report and our proposals will be presented at the BRICS Summit in Kazan.
All right, now for some insights, let's bring in our studio guests. Mr. Liu Yong, Chief Researcher at the DNC think tank, and also Mr. Zhang Yongpeng, Senior Research Fellow at the Institute of West Asian and African Studies of the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us. Well, first of all, we just heard several experts in Russia actually express their expectations on this year's 16th BRICS Summit. It will include a lot of priorities on the agenda, including climate change, regional issues, and more importantly, trade and economic development. So, Mr. Li, tell us your expectations to the discussions that are going to happen today at both narrow and expanded format meetings.
Well, I think, there are quite a lot of priorities being placed on, for example, the economic and trade cooperation among the member countries. But at the same time, these members, particularly the new members, need to get on board. And there will be, I think, discussions about how, they can integrate into the mechanism of cooperation and how, they can move forward as a coherent part of the BRICS organization, if we can call it. And this is one thing. The other thing is the topic of global challenges. And of course, if we look at the expanded 10 members, they are coming from countries at different levels of development. We have countries like China being a huge economy whose GDP is the cumulative sum of the rest of the 9, and is going to play a big role But at the same time, we need to be aware there are also climate vulnerable countries like Egypt, Ethiopia. We face, actually, the 10 members are facing different kind of challenges, and they need to come together in terms of how BRICS can play a role in the fight against climate change, and at the same time giving consideration to countries at different levels of development. Of course, there will be also discussions, I think, about the financial reform and the development of the BRICS pay system, which I think used to be misinterpreted as kind of a de-dollarization, but rather this is going to help those member countries to have more flexibility and more risk resilient in terms of the kind of financial volatilities, potential, for example, for sanctions, and so on and so forth. So there will be quite a lot of discussions, and of course, trade reforms are also going to be on top of the agenda, and financial inclusion, digital transformation, et cetera, et cetera.
So what's your take on this? What are your expectations? And how about we start with your area of expertise, Professor Zhang, the continent of Africa. What do you think of the representation within the expanded BRICS grouping? Now we have Ethiopia and South Africa.
I think as for the African countries, we know that the developing countries and now the so-called global South and had been the most fundamental part of China's diplomacy. And African continent at the African countries, concentrated developing countries, and we know that that is the basis of the base of China's diplomacy. And so African countries, and especially are now, or traditionally for the decades of years, are always facing some serious challenges. For example, the typical global challenges, for example, the pandemic issues, the food security issues, the conflicts, and all of the terrorism, of course, and lots of the global challenges. So with absorbing some of the African countries step by step, one by one, into the BRICS mechanism, it could be some representative of the global development tendency. And so that the international governance could have some different voices from some backward countries. And also, we know that since entering into the BRICS mechanism, and we know that Egypt, South Africa, and Ethiopia has also, they are all the quite typical representative African countries, which are also leading whether economy or population, the quantity of population. And so they could, to some extent, represent some development conditions and situation in an African continent, among the African countries. And so with their acceptance into this mechanism, I think they could be functioning, work as some basic supporting factors to the BRICS mechanism to go forward.
Mm-hmm. Well, gentlemen, we'll be getting back to you very soon on this.
Right. And earlier we spoke to Eric Solheim, former Under-Secretary General of the United Nations. He says the summit is an opportunity for the West to learn from the Global South on how to coexist peacefully.
The BRICS Summit will be taking place in Kazan, Russia this month. How would you define the role of the summit?
I think the role of the BRICS is to try to bring order to a world which is in enormous change. For the last 200 years, the planet has been dominated by Western powers. First the European colonialists and then United States of America. Now we see they rise to the top of the global south, China, India, so many others, and we need an order in this new multipolar world. And this is a body which brings together all those nations who want such an order, but based on the interest of the global south. And look, that is an opportunity for a much more peaceful world, because all the major power of the global south are not into any wars. China hasn't fought a war for the last 45 years. India has only fought wars with Pakistan, and all the other big powers of the global south have not attacked anyone else. There is so much for the West to learn from the global south, and BRICS is an opportunity to bring those lessons to the global table.
With new members and new additions to BRICS Plus, the group of emerging powers will be more globally representative at this month's summit. Is a new order, world order, emerging? And if so, what are the implications of this?
We have been through a century which basically was dominated by the United States, with, of course, some input in some period from the Soviet Union, but the dominant power was the US. They could set the global order, but it was not a rules-based order, because there were some rules for the United States and the West, and others for the rest. For example, the United States engaged in 80 regime change operations in other nations. Ridiculous. If other nations had tried to do anything similar, it would have been completely unacceptable for the United States. The United States has basically been involved in every war in the world for the last decades, while the global south has not initiated any major war. So the time when there was one rules for the West and others for the rest cannot continue. But we have not yet come to the time or the place where we have agreed on a new set of rules, which are the same for everyone, which need to be based on peace, on dialogue, on mutual respect, and of course on fighting together the biggest problems for humanity, like environment destruction, poverty, and climate change.
Earlier, we also spoke to Hada Al-Rubi, chairman of the Iraqi-China Friendship Association. He shares his thoughts on the BRICS cooperation mechanism and his expectations of Iraq's opportunity to join the grouping.
BRICS is an extremely valuable cooperation platform which brings together China, Brazil, India, Russia, South Africa, and other major nations. The accession of Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Egypt has brought great support to the Arab world, which is gratifying. We're looking forward to Iraq's opportunity to join this cooperation mechanism in the future. Disputes and conflicts occur from time to time in the world today, but the BRICS cooperation mechanism has brought development and stability to the future of many countries. As I said, the world is a global village, and all countries should unite and cooperate to achieve win-win results. We wish the BRICS Summit a success and expect more developing countries to join BRICS in the future.
Now, a Russian expert says BRICS has become an important part of a multipolar world. And Alexei Maslov is the director of the Institute of Asian and African Studies at Moscow State University.
First of all, I must point out that BRICS has become an important platform for international cooperation. It brings many countries together and sets a series of goals. First, its goal is to keep the world economy stable and conduct economic dialogues. It's committed to promoting economic and trade exchanges and create a comfortable environment for businesses. China has brought up a number of proposals in this regard, and they've been raised well before the summit. Then, BRICS nations are committed to promoting collective security. We see that BRICS nations are becoming an important summit of a multipolar world. It guarantees not just military security, but also cybersecurity and food security, among others.
Now let's go back to our studio guest. Let me start with you, Mr. Lee. Earlier you mentioned trade could be one of the important topics this time for the leaders. So what do you make of the potential of a BRICS FTA, free trade agreement or free trade zone, whatever that'll be? Because looking at the region, we've already have some ongoing, quite vibrant FTAs going on, for example, the RCEP and the CPTPP. How could a BRICS FTA be more competitive or be more inclusive and attractive?
Well, I think, definitely it's going to be the direction in terms of trade and economic integration for the BRICS members, to develop into that direction. And free trade, of course, is going to, particularly given the varied conditions of those countries, definitely it is going to provide opportunities and based on complementarity. And also, we need to remember, excuse me, the conclusiveness, which is the characteristics of this grouping, and that I think is going to be the future principle on which this likely FTA is going to be developed. So if we have that kind of framework being considered, that will also require a lot of negotiations, and it is very likely it's going to take the model of RCEP, which is going to be a gradual, evolvement of the free trade process, and giving consideration to the less developed countries, to give them more time, to provide, for example, more free, for example, trade frameworks, so that other countries can come and enjoy. But right now, I think there will be differentiated treatment. That's what I'm trying to say, actually.
Right. So you mean actually the mechanism is trying to ensure, as what the theme this year's theme suggests, a fair development, common development for everybody in the mechanism.
Yes.
So we are seeing actually a wave of countries, especially countries from Asia, joining or trying to join. They're waiting. 30 countries are waiting in line to join this mechanism. Why is this platform so appealing to them, Mr. Zhang?
I think since the establishment of the BRICS mechanism, and because this is all developing countries joined organization or mechanism, cooperation mechanism, since the end of the Second World War, in up to now for decades of years, and this is the unique one. And so since the establishment, the cooperation between the members has been covering more and more and wider areas, including particularly politically, economically, and social and cultural, and people to people exchanges, and various kinds of areas. And the most important is they have some financial support the construction of the infrastructures of some respective countries, and especially some least developed countries, or some African countries also among them. And they are, I think, the future targets of the to be accepted within this mechanism. And so there could be some enlightenment for them to gain. And nowadays, we could see that lots of the countries benefited from these financial supports. And there are lots of the projects completed, and which has affected very well in their own development process. And I think, especially in the civil sectors, right, and lots of the local life, people's living standard and incomes especially has been greatly improved. And so all of these should be tangible. And on the other hand, the mechanism of the BRICS could give them some rights or power to strengthen their voices in the international platform. And so through this, and they could feel some kind of sense of existence in the global world, and instead of just right, feel some pessimistic way of existing. They feel not so proud of their existence because they are poor. They are least developed countries, and so I think through this platform. And these countries, the newcomers, whether the newcomers or they existed, right? It could be feel some proud of themselves.
Yeah, actually, out of my own curiosity of why so many countries are trying to join this bloc, I read some articles in which I saw some experts saying that one of the reasons why those countries, the countries who are trying to join the BRICS Summit, are the countries whose voices are not heard in some traditional blocs, in traditional groupings or platforms, and their needs were overlooked on those platforms as well. And those countries, in short, are global south. Do you agree? Do you agree that the countries who are trying to join the BRICS mechanism are mostly global south countries?
Yes, I think this is a very interesting and significant perspectives of why more countries are trying to join BRICS. One reason is that they wanted to join the group to build consensus, to be represented by a rising frontal platform. This is one thing. The other thing is, unlike the decade-old international order, which cannot really reflect the current dynamism in the global system, and particularly organizations like IMF, World Bank, they have been, I would say, ignoring the needs of the less developed countries, or rather, they attach different kind of conditions to providing financial support. So there's one important mechanism as well, which is a new development bank. That bank is going to provide financial support without any strings attached.
Political strings, maybe.
Political strings attached, exactly. And so far, the Development Bank has approved over 100 projects involving $32 billion. So this is the foundation, the financial foundation, for BRICS to further develop, to support the development of less developed countries or countries that need to have those financial support. The other thing is the kind of experiences, the complementarity that I mentioned, particularly in terms of development. China has the strongest manufacturing capability and can provide, for example, experiences and share, our technologies, development processes. Those are also very attractive, particularly as part of the BRI. And, they wish, to come to this group and to have an opportunity to interact with other countries. And of course, if we consider food security, energy security, BRICS have, the biggest two food producers, Russia, Brazil. And we have the 3 oil-producing countries that represent about 40% of the global crude oil export. So in this group, they generate this kind of by itself generates a kind of a gravity for those countries that are looking for joining the group.
So basically the platform is about sharing opportunities, sharing resources, sharing benefits, and make everybody win. Actually.
Right, yes. And Professor Zhang, just to follow Mr. Li Yong's example, talking about finance for the global south, something maybe different to what the World Bank and IMF have been doing in past decades after the Second World War. Now, if we magnify that financing example, do you think the global south and the developing countries are now demanding something that is really beyond the Washington consensus and neoliberalism.
Exactly. We know that every country should have their own right to choose their independent development route. But nowadays, what is lacked, obviously, for the developing countries is just in this respect. And for example, just now we mentioned the IMF, right? Their conditions, and especially you mentioned the political conditions that was attached when they are giving loans to the developing countries. And for example, for the African countries, almost every African countries among the 54, they have signed the agreement, the contracts with the IMF. But for some specific projects, they have attached even more than 100. I'm sorry.
It's a bit dry in Beijing at this season.
Political strengths to such kind of projects. And so that's the most serious consequence for them, because what? By doing so, their independent, especially their strategic plan, national strategic plan, should be modified, should be revised according to the conditions and the requirements of the IMF. So what is that? The seriousness of such kind of thing is that their independence, their sovereignty had been rendered to the IMF and shared. That means what? Basically, the decolonization process of the African countries up to now has always on its way, not completed. And so these are also some necessities, right? And show the necessities for the developing countries, and also so the necessity for the BRICS mechanisms to try to obstructing some kind of developing countries into such kind of mechanism, because this mechanism is an equal, politically equal, economically complementary, right? And culturally learn from each other, right? And civilization also learn from each other. So completely, help each other, organization or mechanism.
Oh, gentlemen, thank you very much for input. We'll be getting back to you on this very soon.
Indeed, and experts and officials from various countries are also looking forward to the 16th BRICS Summit, and they say the summit will not only facilitate the development of BRICS cooperation, but it will also provide new impetus to solidarity and cooperation among countries in the global south.
Top leaders of many countries will attend the 16th BRICS Summit, including China and Russia, which is very important. It proves that relevant countries are optimistic about the future of the BRICS mechanism. The China proposed Belt and Road Initiative brings many countries together to create a large number of new economic projects in areas such as logistics, trade, and investment.
The Global Development Initiative, the Global Security Initiative, and the Global Civilization Initiative proposed by President Xi have not only promoted Chinese development, but also made great contributions to the development of the world.
I am very much looking forward to the speech by the Chinese President Xi Jinping. I think that his speech will be very inspiring and will employ some of the Chinese wisdom that he's very famous for, especially in the field of security, development, but also civilizational dialogue.
So, gentlemen, earlier we were talking about some new features of the BRICS grouping. We talked about financing, we talked about trade. Following on developmental issues, as Mr. Lee, you just mentioned, the differentiated developmental level within the grouping, although they can be all categorized into developing countries or the global south, but yet each and everyone's developmental needs are different to each other. So what do you make of the coordination system, whether it's regarding financing, whether it's regarding leaders' consensus? How do they actually coordinating with each other under this new feature context?
Yes, I think this is really the beauty about this group and the cooperation mechanism, and there are different levels of meetings, like ministerial meetings on trade, economic cooperation, climate change, financial cooperation, and even business leaders summit. So those, I think, will provide opportunities, first of all, to share their perspectives, particularly within the context of the BRICS member countries, giving consideration to the specific, unique features of different countries, from which the individual countries may have individual requirement for their development and for their developmental input, and I think that is the basis for countries to discuss their concerns, their interest, and to seek help. What kind of help can be sought within the BRICS countries, and how their help can be offered through this cooperation mechanism. And in particular, each of the BRICS Summit, is going to reflect their emerging new concerns, new challenges. And those, I think, are the mechanism that will help to have a kind of a tailored solution for the development of in different countries. Of course, like any other international organizations, the BRICS will consider, preferential support for those less developed countries, financially and climate vulnerable countries, to provide more support, technologically, financially, economically, and so on and so forth.
Right, and Mr. Lee just mentioned, elaborated from a macro scale about how this mechanism is coordinating everybody, all the members, and members to be together to make a united effort to be benefited. But in terms of the African countries, because they are very proactively trying to join the bloc as well, what can they bring into this mechanism, and what can the mechanism bring to them exactly?
I think that first of all, for the African countries, that they could get from the mechanism is that they have the opportunity to participating in the international governance, or also the so-called global governance. And because for decades of years, or we could, this kind of circumstances could be dated back to the century of 15th century up to now, and since the colonization happened in the African continent, and up to now, which leads to the single market, or single sort of the African economies for most of the African countries, and up to now, that means what? Most of the African countries could produce quite a few kinds of sort of products, and also at the same time, which leads to the result of they lack the necessary ability to diversify their products of exploitation to China, for example, to other developing countries, and only taking the primary products as the main trunk part of the trade products. And so for them, and this is the opportunity, first of all, the politically to participating in the global governance, and secondly, economic, for them to conduct the more and more different areas, and exporting various kinds of products to the other developing countries, even to the global market. And especially under the agency or agenda of China-Africa Cooperation, for example, the FOCAC,
right,
and or under the Belt and Road Initiative. And China could, the Chinese side have put forth a lot of the measures in helping African countries, including the newly produced the 10 partnership actions, right, which was put forth from the Chinese side. And so China, after all, in a word, is trying practicing great effort to help in Africa, especially in pushing forward the African industrialization, and which is quite an important way or means to diversify the African economy, and so that they can produce more and more different kinds of products and to diversify their structure of trade to the developing countries. And so in the other aspects, there could be quite a lot of benefits. For example, the international exchanges and understandings and try to melting into the global system, right? And making, in a comprehensive way to push forward the African industrialization and economic takeoff.
Right, so you've given us a very typical and a good example of how what Mr. Lee just said, everybody's interests or everybody's development is tailor-made, can be tailor-made in this mechanism to make long and short 5 fingers all fit in one glove and
work together as a powerful fist.
As a powerful fist.
For development. Well, gentlemen, we'll be getting back to you for more of your thoughts. But now let's get more updates. Our reporter Dai Kai reflects on Chinese President Xi Jinping's remarks at the previous BRICS Summit, which are offering insights into the future direction of the grouping.
It's been a long time coming for the 16th BRICS Summit in Kazan, Russia. Over the years, the BRICS nations have turned ideas into action, shaping a platform that now represents the voices of emerging markets and developing countries. As a key player, China has been instrumental in driving progress. As early as 2013, Chinese President Xi Jinping emphasized in Durban, South Africa, that one tree does not make a forest. He called on BRICS countries to not only focus on their own growth, but to work for the common development of all nations. Fast forward to 2017 at the BRICS Summit in Xiamen, China, where 5 non-BRICS nations, Egypt, Guinea, Mexico, Tajikistan, and Thailand, participated at China's invitation. President Xi introduced the BRICS Plus model, aiming to create a more open and diverse network of development partnerships, giving more countries a chance to engage. In his keynote address at the BRICS Business Forum, he quoted an old saying, "It is easy to break one arrow, but hard to break 10 bundled together," stressing the importance of leveraging collective strengths, advancing South-South cooperation, and promoting dialogue between Global South and North. In a virtual address at the 14th BRICS Summit in Beijing in 2022, President Xi Jinping praised the BRICS mechanism for its resilience and vitality amid global challenges. He emphasized the importance of remaining open and inclusive, welcoming like-minded partners into the BRICS family. He said that BRICS countries gather not in a closed club or an exclusive circle, but as a big family of mutual support in a partnership for win-win cooperation. At its core, this platform is about upholding openness, inclusiveness, and harnessing collective wisdom and strength. Soon, all eyes will turn to Kazan, Russia, to see how the country members take cooperation to the next level with a further expanded alliance. Dai Kai, CGTN.
As we've been reporting, this year marks the first expansion of the BRICS international cooperation mechanism, which now includes 10 member nations. Additionally, over 30 countries have shown interest in collaborating with the grouping. According to China's General Administration of Customs, trade between China and other BRICS countries reached 4.62 trillion yuan, that's about $650 billion in the first 3 quarters this year, rising 5.1% on an annual basis. In the industrial sector, China's exports of intermediate goods such as steel and textile raw materials saw significant growth of 8.6% and 13.4% respectively. In agriculture, more than 80% of China's imported poultry meat and frozen pollock fish originated from its BRICS partners. So, Mr. Lee, trade is your area of expertise. What do you make of these figures? Because, to be honest, globally speaking, the whole trading situation and supply chain situation are not exactly optimistic.
Right, but within the context of BRICS countries, we don't really have that kind of political considerations.
Yeah, it's contrary to that kind of disturbing picture.
Yes, and all the members, they treasure their own unique features and opportunities being provided by the partners within the bloc countries. So that, I think, is very important. And China, in particular, in terms of the trade, import, and export structure, you mentioned earlier, China exports steel, export textile raw materials, and in some cases, chemical products. And those are the products actually are needed by those importing countries, which means that they have little or very few production of those, and they need that. And at the same time, without the mechanism of cooperation in BRICS, they won't be able to sell their products like agricultural products, poultry, pollock fish, for example, and fruits, many other things. And China is a key importer of those products, and being able to export to China is going to help them to grow, to improve people's livelihood and personal income, for example. So eventually, it is an upward spiral for those countries, to be part of the trade relations, which is basically complementary and mutually supportive in terms of the future trajectory of the trade development.
Right, and you also mentioned a very important point of China's Belt and Road Initiative being brought into the mechanism. Whenever we talk about the Belt and Road Initiative, especially people outside of China will think of infrastructure, but the injection of China's Belt and Road Initiative into BRICS is not only about infrastructure, it also covers other aspects.
Exactly, yes. Infrastructure is something that will be needed for the development. But there's something need to be built on top of it, that is the economic activities, right? The human interactions economically. So these are the very thing, that will be able to utilize the infrastructure so that, it has become a kind of a organic type of combination.
Right. Let's be more specific when we talk about Belt and Road and BRICS. Apart from infrastructure, of course, BRICS countries also are promoting kind of a cross-border e-commerce and trade cooperation, particularly with the BRICS Commodity Service Center. So, what do you think about this mode? Do you think this model can further optimize the connectivity among the member countries, especially at the time when e-commerce is covering almost every aspect of the world?
Yeah, we can regard it as an important step of the digital transformation of the countries, within within BRICS, and people can use, the internet platform. Okay, that actually means a kind of a democratized sales and marketing. Because in the past, the old model of logistics, you need to concentrate all the products at a certain place and have them loaded on the ships and exported. But with the internet platforms, people can have access, by themselves, to sell their products globally. Okay, so if those other members of BRICS countries, if they can utilize the e-commerce platform, to access Chinese consumers.
Especially when more Asian countries are joining in with different capabilities of transportation.
Indeed, and how does this momentum fare for Africa, Professor Zhang? Because of course, digitalization, going on the internet would accelerate the flow of goods and flow basically of everything. But at the same time, it's unfortunate to say that many African countries are still in dire need in their basic telecommunications infrastructure. So do you think this is kind of a paradox, if not a dilemma, for those developing nations?
You are right. You are right. So up to now, for lots of the African countries, and still they are left behind in developing the e-commerce and the IT technologies, and not mentioning the AI, right? Artificial technology, yes, intelligence. So that is, there could be a great or major challenge for African development and African integrity. And we know that up to now, for African countries, and they are still facing the task to building a continental free trade area, which aims to connect the African countries by infrastructures, by financial systems and currency, for example, systems, unification, and all of the other bordery and the customs unification. And this is really a fundamental factor affecting the basic development of the African countries. And we know now China, in this respect, is also pushing forward lots of the measures or policies in supporting African countries, because for them, not only for African countries, but also for the other developing countries, right? The e-commerce is a representative of the new technology, of the frontier of the development of the technology nowadays. And so if they cannot catch up with the new wave of development of technology, they will be left behind again, and they will be rejected by the history again. And so this is quite a serious, not an economic issue, but also a political issue, and quite a serious issue for them. And so by integrating them into the BRICS mechanism, I think African countries and as well as some other developing countries could benefit a lot, because through such a mechanism, they could be brought into a global forum, a global platform, and so that they can share experiences, technologies, and financial support, not only in infrastructure, but also in, for example, financial systems, and also by some other connectivities. We know that under the initiative of Belt and Road Initiative.
So in that sense, e-commerce actually is a broader sense of infrastructure, and based on that, they can reach every corner of the world. All right, we'll be getting back to you, gentlemen, for more discussions. And one of the successful initiatives of BRICS is the new development bank. And the bank, also known as the NDB, was established in 2015 by Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa as the founding members. It aims to mobilize the resources for infrastructure and sustainable development projects in emerging markets and developing countries. And in 2021, the NDB began expanding its membership and admitted Bangladesh, Egypt, and the United Arab Emirates and Uruguay as new member countries. Currently, the bank's total portfolio stands at $45 billion across more than 100 projects, with over half of the funds already disbursed. According to the NDB's strategy between 2022 and 2026, the bank aims to be recognized as a leading development bank, providing quality financial solutions for infrastructure. Climate change mitigation is also a focus area, and the majority of 40% of the bank's financing to be provided by 2026 has been reserved for green goals. And since its founding in 2015, the BRICS New Development Bank, or NDB, has been actively supporting infrastructure and sustainable development initiatives across various emerging economies and developing countries. In 2018, approved a $300 million sovereign loan to support the construction of the first metro line in Luoyang, central China's Henan province. Now, our reporter Sarah Xue visits the city to see the progress made so far.
Luoyang, one of China's oldest cities and the cradle of ancient Chinese civilization, seamlessly blends history with the modern infrastructure. with the support of a $300 million sovereign loan by the BRICS New Development Bank. The central Chinese cities launched its first metro line in 2021. The line has 19 stations, spanning a total length of over 25 kilometers.
The loan funds were fully utilized, enabling the Luoyang Metro to begin operations 9 months ahead of schedule.
The Luoyang Metro Line 1 project generated nearly 10,000 jobs, reduced carbon emissions by 32,800 tons on an annual basis, and transported 53.42 million passengers by the end of 2023. Earlier this year in February, officials and experts convened in Beijing to review the project's outcomes and lessons learned. According to an evaluation by the Independent Evaluation Office of the New Development Bank, the project was rated as successful. The bank said the project stands as a remarkable success, exceeding expectations in various aspects.
And this project itself has been quite a successful one, particularly in terms of enhancing mobility of communities, of people in the city of Luoyang, in terms of the business development around the metros that NDB helped finance in the city, but also equally critically the reduction in gas emissions, greenhouse gas emissions as a result of the construction of the metro.
The success of the project has strengthened foreign investors' recognition and confidence in investing in Henan, facilitating the province's ability to attract and utilize foreign investment more effectively.
It was the first transportation loan project granted by the New Development Bank to China, and the first collaboration between the bank and Henan province. Today, the New Development Bank stands as a cornerstone of the BRICS cooperation framework. With a focus on infrastructure, sustainability, and environmental protection, the bank plays a key role in driving growth across emerging and developing economies. The NDB has demonstrated a strong performance and has earned an international reputation, attracting increasing interest from global South countries seeking to join its ranks.
The BRICS serves as a vital platform for fostering collaborations among emerging economies. Its initiatives in energy, trade networks, infrastructure projects help foster global prosperity. 夏瑞雪 CGTN 洛阳河南 Province.
Ahead of the BRICS Summit, our reporter Sarah Xue sat down with Ashwani Mutu, the Director General of the Independent Evaluation Office of the BRICS New Development Bank. He spoke about how the bloc has provided India with both development opportunities and enabled the country to pursue greater prosperity.
India is a founding member of the BRICS, and India takes the BRICS platform very seriously. And India is very, very committed to the success of the New Development Bank, which is a very concrete instrument for fostering development in the BRICS countries. So they play a very active role in the governance of the institution, and they accompany the developments of the bank very regularly and very with deep interest. So having said that, cooperation across the BRICS countries for India is fundamental, not only in terms of benefiting from the technologies and markets opportunities that other BRICS countries offers to India, particularly in the service sector for India.
And analysts also say the group is giving a greater voice to countries in Global South. Our correspondent Paulo Cabral reports from Sao Paulo.
Earlier this year, disaster struck southern Brazil as historic flooding destroyed entire cities. After the tragedy, reconstruction was essential, and the New Development Bank, the BRICS Bank, joined the efforts, pledging more than $1 billion, as stated in this message from Brazil's former president, who now serves as president of the NDB.
O Banco dos BRICS tem compromisso.
The BRICS Bank has a commitment and will work on the reconstruction and recovery of the state's infrastructure. We want to help people rebuild their lives.
This economist says the bank plays an important role in the development of multilateralism from a Global South perspective.
All institutions that come along with BRICS, such as the New Development Bank, is a kind of organization, South Global, that wants to take place in a new chessboard.
During a summit in August last year in Johannesburg, BRICS nations announced their decision to expand beyond the 5 founding members: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Together, these countries account for roughly 45% of the global population and 1/3 of the world's economy. All the members, including the 5 nations formally added in January, Egypt, Iran, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and Ethiopia, are developing countries that are considered part of the Global South. The same goes for all prospective partners that have voiced interest in the group.
We understand that what is important is to discuss the criteria for new associations. Once you discuss the criteria, you see which countries fit within them.
We have many leaders, countries that are leaders in their regions. And the Global South, or the developing world, they need leadership. They need countries to go ahead and speak in their names in the multilateral forums.
Developing nations have made it clear they want to amplify their voices on the global stage, and BRICS leaders seem to believe their group may help rebalance international relations. Paulo Cabral, CGTN, São Paulo.
Now let's go back to our studio guest, Professor John. Earlier, you also mentioned the importance of exchanges among civilizations and the importance of it in promoting the development of Global South. We know China has proposed 3 global initiatives focusing on development, security, and civilization. What do you make of China's proposal in the BRICS grouping regarding exchanges among cultures, civilizations, and the people-to-people exchanges?
And I think from the Chinese side, we usually regard the people-to-people exchange and civilization exchanges and learn from each other as the basis of its economy, of its diplomacy, which is counter to that of the deglobalization or unilateralism or protectionism, because we should say up to now, almost all of the developing countries benefited greatly or significantly from globalization, and they need the cooperation between each other. They need multilateralism, and they need open market, a world open market to benefit themselves, exchange products and diversify their economy. And so without people-to-people exchanges and without the learn from each other in between the different civilizations, and the foundation will lack. And so whether the economic cooperation or political cooperation, the cultural exchange is the basis, should be the basis. Without that, everything will be empty, I should say.
Right, and indeed, people-to-people exchanges are very important in terms of establishing a very harmonious relations among countries, not only among the BRICS member countries, but also between any other countries as well in the world. But another important factor, as we just introduced just now, is money, right? How to make money, how to share the benefits fairly, equally within the mechanism. And we just introduced in all details about this new bank, the new development bank. And Mr. Li just mentioned some advantages of setting up this bank. And this bank has a very ambitious goal, as we just introduced, it's aiming to be characterized as a leading development bank in the world. Do you see that, Mr. Li, as too ambitious goal? Or do you think it's practical as well?
I'm sure this is a practical goal because, considering the presence of different kind of financial institutions.
But what they are
globally,
facing, the competition they're facing is with IMF, with AIIB, with other leading
those two,
monetary
for example, they came out of the old financial system, and the new development bank is constructed on the common ideal of the global south is intended to resolve the problems that those developing countries cannot solve with the assistance of the other institutions. So this aim is not just practical, it is going to be uniquely beneficial.
What's
to
unique
countries.
about NDB comparing with the other monetary organizations?
We mentioned earlier, it is a bank that has a decision making based on consensus. It does not impose any additional political or whatever conditions, and it adopts also international best practices in terms of approving, evaluating projects.
But in other monetary organizations, actually reaching a consensus is the most complicated procedure.
Well, I think whether it is complicated or not, it depends whether it is friendly enough in terms of being able to offer assistance, and in the process, I think the bank, the expert group will also provide recommendations, for example, in terms of how effectively, efficiently those infrastructures project can be operated. So those, I think, will be the things that are so different, and there will not just be providing of the funding, there will also be a kind of hand-holding.
Right. So it's actually sharing oriented.
Exactly, sharing experiences, provide guidances, handhold them to reach a certain stage of operational efficiency, so that the investment can be recuperated within reasonable short period of time. So that is the vitality of the new development bank mechanism.
So just to follow on that, having said that, do you think also the CRF Contingency Reserve Fund is also established for this particular purpose? Tell us more about this particular CRF.
CRF, I'm not sure whether I understand it, but can you tell me what is CRF?
Just mainly, it's also part of the BRICS internal financing system, and just as the name tells, contingency reserve funding.
Oh,
so,
yes.
Yeah.
There are different kinds of emergency arrangements within the system. Financial emergency. That reserve is going to be prepared for unexpected, for example, outbreak of certain natural disaster, some kind of accidents or whatever, and there's also a reserve material, purchase system that will be supported and connected by the emergency system. So this is also a kind of a difference, with the other international institutions. And that is also based on the close interactive communications among the member countries.
So this could also be a sign of mutual confidence within the grouping, because eventually you have a fund, then you will have the distribution and the joint rights system.
Yes, exactly. It is not just, I think, the whole block is on the basis of mutual trust and mutually supportive and mutually appreciative of each other in terms of their choice of their development path, and in terms of their willingness to work together to resolve the, for example, the cutting issues of the development. Like particularly, the bank devoted quite a percentage of their fund to green development. That also shows that the global south is also very concerned about the climate change challenges, and they are ready to fight against it, and we have this financial mechanism to support that development. Okay, so that, I think, in a word, represents the wholeness, inclusiveness, of this financial mechanism, to
right.
Yeah.
And gentlemen, let's get more the latest updates.
Right. And Chinese President Xi Jinping attended the 16th BRICS Summit on Wednesday, and he arrived in Kazan yesterday for the 16th BRICS Summit. And let's continue our discussion. What, as far as I understand, what Mr. Li just described is actually it's a consistent principle and goal of a BRICS Summit, whether be it the new development bank or the contingent reserve arrangement. The aim of all of them is to help the member countries, no matter what development stage they are, to enjoy a fair development environment and ecological environment as well. So, with that being said, the BRICS influence in global, especially financial governance, is growing, as we can see, especially with more and more countries are trying to enter this bloc. How do you see in the near future, Mr. Zhang, its growing influence on the world economy? Do you see it attracting a lot more other countries and make them less dependent on the old traditional economic systems or order?
Yes, I think it is. We should be quite sure that it will be effectiveness in helping the developing countries in this area, because we know traditionally we should say the old world order, including the political order, and that is the hegemony-dominated world order, or some developed countries, or economically, the old economic order is that lots of the financial systems and the right is in the hands of the developed countries, and especially representative of the World Bank and the IMF. Right, and with participating in the BRICS mechanism, these countries, we should say, they could be offer lots of the equal treatment in distributing the economic resources. For example, the loans and some of the monetary supports, as we talked about just now. I think for the new development bank. Also, I think the typical two aspect is first, politically, they are equal, and they are helping each other and aimed at a definite goal of development that is called a shared goal, or whether the common development goal. And so the final goal or purpose is all the same. And that's a sharp difference between this mechanism, financial organization, to that of the international ones, for example, the World Bank and the IMF. And they are not only including the developing countries, but also dominated, especially by the developed economies. And so that's why they have been attaching a great deal of the political strength and to.
Now let's cross live to Kazan in Russia. Leaders attending the 16th BRICS Summit, a narrow format meeting, arriving at the venue. And according to the official schedule released so far, Wednesday will include two crucial meetings. One's narrow format meeting, the other is expanded format meeting. And again, you're watching live footage from Kazan in Russia. This is the meeting venue for the 16th BRICS Summit. And as we've been reporting, Chinese President Xi Jinping arrived in Kazan on Tuesday, and he's now attending both of these two crucial meetings on Wednesday.
Right, and he's going to join the other national leaders who are participating in today's events, namely the narrow and expanded format meetings, and which they will talk about the core issues that we're facing today and try to find solutions out of the discussion.
Yeah. The convoy of Chinese President Xi Jinping is now entering the venue of the 16th BRICS Summit. We're watching live footage from Kazan in Russia. Chinese President Xi Jinping has arrived at the venue of the summit. And as we've been reporting, this is the first BRICS Summit after the group's expansion. Chinese President Xi Jinping has arrived for the narrow format meeting of the BRICS and also the expanded format meeting. Both are scheduled for Wednesday. Chinese President Xi Jinping has entered the venue.
And he's being greeted by other participants attending today's events. And actually, during the three-day event, BRICS leaders are set to attend the main events of the Kazan Summit and approve the forum's final declaration.
And this is the first BRICS Summit since the group's expansion. Now the group has 10 member states, and many, as we're saying, are applying to join. So just to continue our discussion, gentlemen, Chinese President Xi Jinping has arrived at the venue for the narrow and expanded meetings of the BRICS Summit. Earlier, we talked about many urgent issues at hand for the Global South and developing nations, like financing, trade, injustice, inequality in the current world order. What about climate change, Mr. Li? How pressing is the issue for the grouping and the larger Global South?
You know, climate change is real. You know, you can see the natural disaster in different places. The hurricane in the U.S. that caused catastrophe, and you know, extreme weather that have impact. That has impact on the, for example, food production, and those need to be addressed with serious commitment. And obviously, BRICS countries are very committed to fighting against the climate change. And next year, Brazil is going to hold the BRICS Summit, while at the same time hosting the COP30.
Right.
So I believe the voices of Global South, as represented by BRICS, you know, is going to be more pronounced in the next year's summit, and there, I think, will be calls for serious investment and policy devotions, particularly in terms of fighting the climate change. As we can see, some countries are retreating from the commitment, you know, on green development, and some countries are using, you know, environmental or, you know, climate change requirements as a kind of a protectionism, protectionist measures, and those, I think, will be addressed more broadly, you know, within the global trading system, and at the same time, I think the concerns of less developed countries need to be also addressed. For example, developed countries need to devote more financially to help those least developed economies, and more aggressively or proactively transfer you know, green technologies to those countries, so that they can enable them to acquire the ability and to develop environmental friendly industries and the ability to fight against the climate changes.
Right.
So those are very important. But coming back to earlier discussion about the differences between the financial system, the bloc's financial mechanism and the other financial institutions, I just wanted to make a point that the difference does not mean the two different type of financial institutions or mechanism are opposing to each
Right.
other. They are complementing,
Right.
and the current bloc of 10 countries, they not just representing the voice of global South, but also will serve, will actively coordinate with countries, for example, member countries of G20, and through G20, with G7, which determine mostly, the global agenda. So this process, I think, is going to contribute a kind of a harmonious, hopefully, relationship between the global South and global North.
That's not
That could
hope.
be an
That's
ideal
actually
scenario.
that's a reality that the BRICS countries, BRICS mechanism is trying to achieve, actually, to set up harmonious relationship among the bloc. And well, let's go live to Kazan, Russia right now, and to see what's going on there. The leaders of the BRICS member states are posing for a group photo to mark the 16th summit of the bloc. And this actually is the first summit of expanded BRICS. It is expected to inject fresh energy into common development, solidarity and cooperation across the global South. And after the family photo, they're going to attend the narrow and expanded format meetings with a lot of prioritized agenda being discussed. Well, we can easily, back to the green development, we can easily see the resolution made by the bloc to develop that, especially from the percentage of money distributed by NDB.
Yeah, and the promise is solid, and these countries walk to walk, talk to talk, and walk to walk.
Exactly, it's not just a talk shop, as what President Xi
Indeed,
said.
indeed. Thank you very much, Professor Zhang Yongpeng and Mr. Li Yong there. And that's it for this special program on CGTN. I'm Pan Dong in Beijing.
I'm Dong Ning. Thanks for watching.
Stay tuned.
Welcome to Global Business on CGTN. I'm Lulu in Beijing, and these are the headlines we're tracking at the hour. Global cooperation. Chinese President Xi Jinping launched BRICS as a catalyst for cooperation among emerging markets during a meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Economic insights. Participants at the ongoing Cybers 2024 in Beijing are actively engaging in discussions about China's financial openness and its profound implications for the global economy. Growth forecast. The International Monetary Fund forecasts 4.2% growth for emerging and developing economies amid global economic shifts. And as usual, here's a quick check on Chinese mainland stock markets as we officially kicks off the show. As we can see, key indices today put up some modest gains. The benchmark Shanghai Composite Index adding about 17 points or about close to 0.5%, while the smaller Shenzhen Component Index, which is mid-cap focused, adding about 0.16%. That's also adding about 17 points. And CSI 300 Index tracks the top listings on the Chinese mainland markets, finishing the day adding about 0.4%. We're going to later on in the show tell you who are the market shakers and movers of the day. But for now, let's check out how regional shares are performing and how Wall Street closed out overnight. Chinese President Xi Jinping is in the Russian city of Kazan for the 16th BRICS Summit. He will attend multiple events and deliver important addresses. Ahead of the summit, he held talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin on Tuesday. President Xi emphasized the enduring friendship between their countries. He said that China and Russia have continuously deepened and expanded their comprehensive strategic coordination and mutually beneficial and win-win cooperation across various fields.
President Xi highlighted the deep historical ties between China and Russia, which remain strong despite global uncertainties. Xi praised the BRICS cooperation mechanism as a vital platform for emerging markets and developing countries, driving global equality and inclusive economic globalization. President Xi commended Russia for its role as the BRICS chair and expressed optimism about working with Putin and other leaders to strengthen strategic collaboration, promote unity, and seize new opportunities for the global south. He reiterated China's commitment to advancing the BRICS agenda and contributing to the shared future of humanity. He noted the upcoming BRICS Summit as the first with new member states, marking a milestone in expanding cooperation.
Chinese President Xi Jinping reaffirmed that China will always be a reliable friend and partner to Laos. Xi made those remarks during his meeting with Lao President Thongloun Sisouli on Tuesday in Kazan. During the meeting, Xi praised the progress made between the two nations over the past year in areas such as connectivity, trade, investment, and people-to-people exchanges. He highlighted the significance of China-Laos relations within China's neighboring diplomacy, expressing a commitment to strengthening strategic trust, deepening cooperation, and advancing the construction of a China-Laos community with a shared future. President Thongloun noted that bilateral ties are at their strongest in history. He acknowledged China's support in contributing to Laos' economic and social development and voiced his eagerness to continue collaborating on major projects like the China-Laos Railway and the China-Laos Economic Corridor. Both leaders are in Kazan for the 16th BRICS Summit and related meetings. The summit in Kazan is the first gathering of BRICS countries following the bloc's expansion to include 5 new members. CGTN spoke to some top officials of BRICS nations about their expectations for this year's summit.
I would say that Thailand could be a bridge that connects BRICS with the ASEAN region for unlimited economic opportunities. With China as one of BRICS key members, I am certain that our journey with BRICS beyond the summit will move forward smoothly.
The BRICS, since you asked also about the BRICS, is a new group which is very important and whose cohesiveness is essential for a peaceful world.
We see that the payment system has recently become politicized. Western countries restrict payments and money transfers through banks. They limit the use of the financial message transmission system. Therefore, in order to ensure the independence and stability of our trade relations, there is a question of creating our own settlement system, our own system for transmitting financial messages, so that there will be no risks in our trading, and there were no risks to trade with the BRICS countries. We discussed this issue with our partners and colleagues in the ministries of finance. In general, we agree that we will prepare a report to our leaders. Both their report and our proposals will be presented at the BRICS Summit in Kazan.
Well, today is day 3 of the SWIFT International Bankers Operations Seminar, or known as SIBOS. This year's seminar serves as a channel to promote the innovative cooperation for domestic and overseas financial institutions. During the event, Standard Chartered Bank and Bank of Communications signed a memorandum of strategic cooperation on digital currency. Digital payments company Visa released its research results on working capital of global mid-market growth companies. The report showed that these companies have significantly improved the efficiency on the usage of working capital. Similarly, McKinsey released a report on the global payment industry, which is expected to post a revenue of over $3 trillion by year 2028. The global participants from foreign institutions said that the seminar is expected to improve the global financial ecosystem and witness the high-level opening up of China's financial market. Now, let's go live to SIBOS 2024 in Beijing and check in with my colleague Michael Wang for more insights from the event. Hi there, Michael. I hope you're having fun.
I am indeed having fun. Hi there, good afternoon from SIBOS, Lily. It is indeed day 3 of this event, an action-packed day. We've heard topics ranging from what is China's secret recipe when it comes to unleashing the next wave of innovation to reshape global businesses, all the way to how do we better navigate the future of the global capital markets. But of course, this year's SIBOS runs in parallel with the 16th BRICS Summit being held right now in Kazan, Russia. Walking around this exhibition hall, Lily, we do see a lot of financial institutions from BRICS nations being represented. So in addition to the large Chinese financial institutions, we see, for example, the State Bank of India is here, the National Bank of Egypt is here. We see Africa's largest bank by assets, Standard Bank, is here. 2 heavyweight financial institutions from the UAE, first Abu Dhabi and Masrek, both here as well. We're also seeing financial institutions from countries who have formally applied to join the BRICS grouping here as well. So Turkey's, for example, largest privately owned investment bank and largest privately owned bank, both also here as well. To my left, I see Capital Bank from Azerbaijan applying to join the BRICS grouping just this August. And to my right, I see Capital Bank from Uzbekistan as well. So financial institutions from developing economies certainly well represented at this year's SIBOS. BRICS, of course, a major platform to amplify the voices of developing economies. Speaking of which, we now, of course, have Africa's largest, second largest, and 5th largest economies, all part of the BRICS grouping. So I'm talking about South Africa, Egypt, and Ethiopia, and collectively, they represent about 1/3 of Africa's economic output. So a BRICS right now, I guess one of the biggest questions it will be, what more can this grouping do in terms of supporting Africa's development, the mechanisms and the institutions within BRICS? How else can BRICS support and unlock Africa's potential? And that's why I'm here at the stand of the African Export and Import Bank, Afrexim Bank. Of course, this is the Pan-African financial institution, multilateral lender that supports not just intra-African trade, but also supporting Africa's trade with the rest of the world. So I want to bring in now Kwabena Airebi, who is the Managing Director of Banking Operations at Afrexim Bank. So, Kwabena, welcome to the program. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Let me get your take first in terms of BRICS overall, and what more this mechanism, this group can do for the African continent in terms of supporting trade and growth, because now we have stronger voices from Africa in the BRICS grouping, with now South Africa, Ethiopia, and Egypt as official members.
Thank you very much, and it's a real pleasure for Afrexim Bank to be here in Beijing. It's a fantastic experience to see how China as an economy has been able to transform itself. For us, we always talk about the deficit of access to finance that is holding back Africa from its development. So if you talk about the BRICS and what they could do for the continent of Africa, for us, it provides an opportunity where we have a group of like-minded nations who they themselves have experienced the path from developing to more developed economies, some still on the journey, from which we as a collective could learn from. So we see tremendous opportunity in terms of how this grouping would help drive Africa's growth and to achieve the vision of the Africa that we are all looking for.
Yeah, and I want to get your take, Kwabena, in terms of the potential synergies we might see from Afrexim Bank with also the new development bank. Of course, the NDB, this is the multilateral development lender for the BRICS nations. This is the first MDB started by emerging market economies, developing economies for developing economies. What potential synergies do you see between Afrexim Bank and the NDB, and what potential implications for Africa does this synergy mean?
Look, it's actually not potential, if I may add. The synergies are already taking place. Afrexim Bank is currently, as we speak, in discussions with the NDB for a $200 million facility that we are going to implement on behalf of NDB for one of our mutual member countries, Egypt, and also for our mutual mandate initiatives in the areas of energy, transport infrastructure, digital infrastructure. So it's not potential. For Afrexim Bank, the value that we bring here is we currently have membership cutting across all of the African countries. So of course, and we are a trusted partner in there. So what we provide for the NDB is a gateway of a trusted partner who is as committed to the development of Africa as the NDB is. What they bring to us is that capital and the cloud that augments our own implementation abilities on the continent, so that together we can drive change when it comes to, be it intra-African trade, be it trade with the South-South countries, which over the last decades have actually been a key driver for Africa's trade globally.
Yeah, and I think the BRICS nations, the mechanisms within BRICS, definitely want to see more financial inclusion for the citizens of BRICS nations. Here at Sibos, you're going to be giving a talk on financial inclusion tomorrow. What do you think would be the main takeaways that you would give for emerging and developing economies in terms of how we can better boost financial inclusion?
We look at financial inclusion from multiple ways. For us as Africa, one of the key initiatives that we've embarked on is giving Africans the ability to able to transact with each other, to trade with each other, to share remittances across borders in our local currencies. And that is why we developed the Pan-African Payments and Settlement System that is now live across the continent, where today, if I'm a customer sitting in Ghana, I can actually pay Ghanaian cedis and buy a product in Nigeria, and the seller gets paid in Nigerian naira. For us, this is a critical way where we diversify the currencies in which we do business together. And we firmly believe that as our ability to trade amongst each other grows, the development of Africa grows. But financial inclusion for us is not just about it being inward-looking. It's also about facilitating how we trade with the rest of the world. And we focus our initiatives on doing that. We now have a program that we call the Afrexim Bank Trade Facilitation Facility, where in about 2 years, we aim to be able to provide confirmation lines for about 500 banks in Africa, mitigating the risk of them trading with the rest of the world. What we are also looking at is we know that the dollar will remain the strongest currency for our global trade, but we want to offer the optionality for Africa to be able to use different currencies. So we're looking for ways in which we can facilitate trade in other currencies like renminbi, etc. So that is how we are looking to drive inclusion. We want everybody across the continent to be able to meet their daily needs without any restrictions on how they can pay for their daily goods and services.
A fantastic vision. forward for Africa. We're going to leave it there, Kwabena. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure, and I will continue to enjoy Beijing. Thank you.
Kwabena Irabeni, Managing Director of Banking Operations at Frexen Bank. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, Lily, tomorrow is going to be the last day of Sibos. Of course, this is all about payments, securities, and the plumbing, I guess, the financial markets infrastructure that makes the global capital markets and financial system work. So tomorrow, I will be laser focused in terms of how fintech is changing the game when it comes to the global financial markets. But for now, it's back to you in the studio.
Well, that sounds very interesting. Looking forward to crossing to you tomorrow. Have fun there, Michael. And delegates at the Sibos event are of the view that BRICS can provide a sense of stability to an increasingly uncertain global economic landscape. We spoke with Andre Duplessis, CEO of Standard Advisory China at Standard Bank, during the Sibos event, and he shared with us his insights on this topic.
Geopolitics is making it trickier for corporates, with trade barriers actually going up, in some trade and investment corridors. So friction is rising instead of decreasing or remaining the same. But between Africa and China or other BRICS countries, we hope that, and we don't foresee, that between those nations that friction will increase. As you know, there was the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation last week, the last week of September in Beijing, where a lot of African presidents came into China, to talk, political alignment or political discussions, and a lot of economic discussions as well.
Well, one of the successful initiatives of BRICS is the New Development Bank, or the NDB. It was established in 2015 by Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, the founding members. It aims to mobilize resources for infrastructure and sustainable development projects in emerging markets and developing countries. In 2021, the NDB began to expand its membership and admitted Bangladesh, Egypt, and the United Arab Emirates and Uruguay as new member countries. Currently, the bank's total portfolio stands at $45 billion across more than 100 projects, with over half of the funds already disbursed. And according to the NDB's strategy between 2022 and 2026, the bank aims to be recognized as a leading development bank, providing quality financial solutions for infrastructure. Climate change mitigation is a focus area as well. The majority of 40% of the bank's financing to be provided by 2026 has been reserved for green goals. And the NDB has initiated its first non-sovereign loan in China to drive green transformation. Our reporter Hou Jing visits Huzhou, a green pilot city in East China's Zhejiang province, to find out how financial tools can support green development.
Lucid waters and lush mountains are indeed a vivid depiction of Anji County of Huzhou City in East China's Zhejiang province. And these invaluable assets are what Huzhou City is making efforts to preserve.
Here at the local reservoir of Anji County, I found the water and sand can truly mean gold to the local company that manages the reservoir. What is the total revenue we can get from selling sand and soil throughout our entire project?
Nearly half our total revenue comes from this project. The area was initially filled with mud and household waste, all of which has now been cleared away. After the dredging process, we were selling the extracted sand and gravel. The second was the sale of raw water, and the third was renting the reservoir to nearby residents for their operations. Last year, the New Development Bank conducted on-site inspections of our project, and I sensed that they place a greater emphasis on achieving sustainable development following our clearing project, which distinguishes them from other banks.
The loan project Mr. Huang referred to is the first non-sovereign loan approved in China by the New Development Bank, in partnership with the Bank of Huzhou.
The loan is channeled through Bank of Huzhou as a financial intermediary to fund multiple projects, taking advantage of its local client resource and green finance expertise to expand development impact with a broader scope of beneficiaries. It is also the first city commercial bank to establish a green finance system and set green credit evaluation standards. We were both looking for each other.
Throughout the project deployment, the new development bank funded 80% of the total costs, while we contributed the remaining 20%. They provided us with an amount equivalent to $50 million in Chinese yuan, which is approximately 350 million yuan. Nearly 90% of this funding has been invested so far. Our cooperation with the NDB has focused more on the green transformation of infrastructure. This includes the consolidation of water conservancy facilities and the enhancement of their safety, the improvement of logistics and transportation networks, and adoption of new energy sources.
The reservoir project utilizes the eco-environment-oriented development model to address financial challenges in environmental conservation.
The entire project's construction consists of two lists, one for environmental remediation and the other on the industrial overlay. These two elements are implemented simultaneously, with the costs of environmental remediation being covered by the benefits generated from industrial output.
Some green projects are not only self-sustaining, but also enable traditional companies to engage in green transformations. A notable example is Mr. Zheng's project to install distributed photovoltaic panels on factory rooftops.
Generally, the electricity generated from our investment should primarily be consumed by the enterprises themselves. We have approximately 150 such power stations in Huzhou, generating around 100 million kilowatt-hours of electricity annually through photovoltaics, which is equivalent to a small power plant, though they are not visible like traditional power plants since they are located on rooftops. By the end of the year, these enterprises might receive a rental income of 50,000 yuan.
Mr. Zheng explained that these solar panels have a lifespan of around 25 years. After an 8-year loan repayment period, the sale of green electricity can become significantly more profitable. This green transformation is set to benefit all parties involved. Given Huzhou's status as China's first green finance pilot zone, there is considerable anticipation for the expansion of this model to other regions. Hou Jing, CGTN in Huzhou, Zhejiang Province.
This is Global Business, and still to come on the program. Growth forecast. The International Monetary Fund forecasts 4.2% growth for emerging and developing economies amid global economic shifts.
The world economy as we know it is about to change. Global business reports highlight emerging markets, developing countries, and dynamic sectors worldwide. We feature top analysts and newsmakers to provide perspectives on every facet of business. From an on-the-ground perspective, we provide you with balanced and objective assessments. Fast, sharp, and insightful. Global Business. Only on CGTN.
Welcome back. The 2024 annual meetings of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank Group is being held from Monday to Saturday in Washington, D.C. The IMF is sending out positive signs by revising its growth forecasts for major economies. It anticipates emerging and developing economies to sustain robust growth with a predicted economic growth rate of 4.2% for this year. However, geopolitical tensions also bring some uncertainties and potential risks. CGTN's Owen Fairclough reports from Washington, D.C.
The International Monetary Fund revising growth forecasts upwards for some of the world's major economies should be cause for celebration. But at the annual meetings the IMF hosts with the World Bank, there's caution.
What risks are the ones that we think are the most relevant? Well, geopolitical tensions, fragmentation, leading to increased tariffs, leading to potentially spikes in commodity prices related to what might be happening in the Middle East. That certainly would be something that could add inflationary pressures, weaken activity, so not a good development.
If the Eurozone, Japan and Mexico are struggling, the likes of Brazil, India, the United States and the United Kingdom have so far weathered all of those risks to enjoy either stronger growth forecasts or no change compared to the IMF's last assessment in July. Experts gathered in Washington, D.C. are urging central banks who've largely tamed inflation to now stimulate growth by cutting interest rates previously raised to drive down prices.
We have three main policy recommendations. One relates to monetary policy for central banks to pivot towards providing more support to activity where inflation is under control.
Other IMF recommendations include cutting public debt through taxation without stifling growth, while maintaining that growth with a steady labour supply. But both of those will be problematic for Donald Trump if he wins the US presidential election in 2 weeks' time. While the IMF has praised the US for the impact of foreign-born workers on the economy, Trump wants to restrict immigration. And government accountants have warned that tax cuts proposed by both Trump and opponent Kamala Harris would add trillions of dollars to the public debt. Owen Fairclough, CGTN, Washington.
Let's get to the latest from this year's BRICS Summit in Kazan, Russia, where leaders of the world's main emerging economies are gathering. The narrow format meeting is being held at the Kazan Expo International Exhibition Center. And ahead of the meeting, BRICS leaders took a group photo. Russian President Vladimir Putin delivered an opening speech. And Chinese President Xi Jinping is expected to address the meeting. He has attended the BRICS Summit for 12 consecutive years. And this is the first summit since BRICS expanded. It is expected to inject fresh energy into common development, solidarity, and cooperation across the global south. China's latest measures to shore up the economy have drawn praise from the International Monetary Fund. And upon the release of its new World Economic Outlook on Tuesday, the IMF's Research Department Director Pierre-Olivier Gourishat says that China's recent monetary and fiscal stimulus were going in the right direction. And more measures for the rest of the year could, as he says, help to lift the economy going forward. The IMF has revised its forecast for China's economic growth in 2024 down slightly from 5% to 4.8%. China's recent fiscal stimulus has not yet been factored into the October growth forecasts. That is according to Petia Kova-Brooks, Deputy Director of the IMF's Research Department. She said that the stimulus is expected to positively influence China's economic growth trajectory. And she also highlighted several challenging trends affecting global trade.
Well, we have seen trends of geoeconomic fragmentation that started a while back, and I think that is having an impact on the global economy as well. What we have observed is that even though trade has held up at the aggregate level quite well, what we've seen is a lot more trade within blocks as opposed to in between. And this is one of the concerns that we have, that going forward, further deterioration in that respect in terms of this geoeconomic fragmentation could be another headwind that the world economy faces.
China's economy, of course, hugely important for the world as a whole. A lot of stimulus measures have, of course, been announced by China. Many want to see more. What's your assessment?
Well, we have China growing at 4.8 this year, coming down to 4.5 next year. But this year, we have a small downgrade in our forecast, which just reflects the data that we have observed. Some of the measures that were announced, in particular the ones by the Monetary Authority, they have been incorporated in our forecast, but the most recent wave of measures have not been incorporated yet. And then at the same time, we've also seen the Q3 data that surprised on the downside. So when we put it all together, I would say that for this year, although the downward surprise in the Q3 data poses a risk in a negative direction, then the most recent measures that have been announced that are very much in line with some of our recommendations, they pose a risk on the upside.
So some countries clearly are bouncing back, recovering more strongly than others. Who should we be worried about? Who needs more help?
Well, At the aggregate level, what we observe is that advanced economies have certainly made up the lost ground after the pandemic, and their activity levels are basically where they had been projected before. Inflation is also coming down, and it's really mostly emerging markets and the low-income countries that have suffered the most. Especially now we see many countries affected by conflict, affected by climate shocks, and they need help, which is something that we emphasize in our report yet again.
Chinese tech company Huawei has formally launched a new mobile operating system, Harmony OS Next, which is positioned as an alternative to Apple's iOS and the open-source Android. How will this change the game between China's tech landscape and the rest of the world? Our reporter Xu Hua has more.
Huawei says Harmony OS Next is a completely independent operating system for mobile, computer, and smart wearables. Some of the early movers are impressed.
It seems to be more power efficient, which is something I appreciate, especially since I make a lot of phone calls and use WeChat a lot.
The system is quite smooth as well, without any jarring, and the entire interface has been redesigned to be more flat and minimalistic. I like it.
Huawei says its Harmony OS ranks the second in the Chinese market, with 6.7 million registered developers and over 1 billion ecological devices. According to Counterpoint Research, Harmony OS made up 17% of China's smartphone market in Q1 of 2024, surpassing iOS 16% and becoming the second largest operating system in China after Android's 67%.
With Android and iOS already well-established operating systems, can Huawei's new platform compete with its counterparts? And will its new version see an influx of users?
My phone is Apple 12. I won't consider changing it because I'm used to it, and sometimes I need to use some of its apps.
There aren't many apps available on Harmony OS Next yet, so I won't switch to it right away. Instead, I'll continue using my current operating system, the older version of Harmony OS or iOS.
New options.
Oh,
yes.
New option.
Yes. Very good.
In terms of the product, Huawei represents our country's scientific and technological strength. Second, it is a kind of patriotism. We, as Chinese people, must support Chinese domestic products.
The source code of the Android system is indeed open to users and developers. Why did Huawei still develop its own operating system?
As a leading enterprise in scientific and technological innovation in China, Huawei bears the responsibility of providing a public operating system for Chinese manufacturing and addressing the technical bottleneck that arise in the current great power competition.
Cao believes that Huawei's self-developed operating system could have a substantial impact on China's manufacturing industry in the future, potentially becoming the fundamental infrastructure for both China's and the world's digital economy. Xu Hua, CGTN, Shenzhen.
And here's a quick look at the other corporate headlines that we're tracking at the hour. Apple CEO Tim Cook says that the company would continue to expand investment and contribute to the industrial and supply chains during his meeting with Chinese Minister of Industry and Information Technology Jing Zhuanglong on Wednesday. Cook also said that Apple was willing to actively seize the opportunities of China's opening up to the global market. Starbucks has suspended its annual forecast through the next fiscal year as new CEO Brian Nicole looks to turn the company's fortunes around as it struggles with falling demand. The coffee giant reported preliminary fourth quarter results that showed a decline in same-store sales, net revenue, and profit that is due to weak demand in the United States. French cosmetics giant L'Oreal reported third-quarter sales on Tuesday totaling 10.28 billion euros, or about $11.11 billion US dollars. That's a 3.4% rise on a like-for-like basis at constant exchange rates. COP16 is underway in Cali, Colombia. Government delegates, experts, and civil society are all under pressure to take action in biodiversity conservation. And China held the torch for more than 2 years as president of COP15. Its leadership leaves a legacy that includes the passing of the important measures, such as the Kunming-Montreal Agreement. Our correspondent Michelle Vegas has more from Cali.
Before Colombia took over the rotating presidency for the COP16 summit, China led the world's biodiversity conservation dialogue. As president of COP15, China had a challenging role to play: unite nearly 200 countries, reconcile diverging positions, and get an ambitious agreement approved for biodiversity conservation. The result was the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework that was adopted in December 2022, with 196 countries approving the agreement. Ahead of the COP16 summit, countries were encouraged to present their national biodiversity strategies and action plans to be in line with the new Global Biodiversity Framework. On the second day of the convention, the COP16 media spokesperson reported that 35 nations submitted their plan. During the conference, China's Minister of the Environment held various discussions on China's goals as the country presented their updated biodiversity action plan in January.
We launched a new version of NBSAP in January this year with the vision of building a beautiful China where people and nature coexist in harmony, and proposed China's biodiversity conservation goals for 2030 and 2035. In addition, we deployed a total of 27 priority actions and 75 priority projects in 4 priority areas, namely mainstreaming biodiversity, addressing the risk of biodiversity loss, sustainable use of biodiversity, and modernizing biodiversity governance capacity. China is the first developing country to complete the update of NPSAP.
Dr. Lin Li, Senior Director of the Global Policy and Advocacy at the World Wildlife Fund International, has been leading WWF's China Conservation Program for the last 11 years. The World Wildlife Fund was the first NGO invited into China in the 1980s, and Dr. Li says the changes in China's conservation and sustainability policies have grown exponentially over the last few years.
This 40 years is also the time when we see China going through rapid economic development. And we know when the economic development is really rapid, nature suffers. So it's critical to remember that nature sustains us, even the economy development. So therefore, we are really happy to see China is putting a path towards a green and a low carbon development. And this is interesting for the world to know that they do that for the fourfold purposes. One is to bring human development back in harmony with nature.
WWF China is working with stakeholders in China, including the government, on conservation of wildlife and ecosystems, as well with parks officials to build the biggest national park system in China. Experiences they shared at COP16.
I think the world has a lot to learn from China. You know, the country has a different context to deal with, but a lot of essence, which is really going towards sustainability, is something the world needs to really learn, share, so that we can all go through the future living in harmony with nature together.
For any conservation work, the biggest challenge is funding. In May, the Kunming Biodiversity Fund was launched in support of biodiversity conservation in developing countries. China pledged more than $200 million as an incentive for other countries to take action. Michelle Vegas, CGTN, Cali, Colombia.
Well, the Chinese province of Hainan is making significant strides in addressing the spread of plastic waste, stepping up efforts to promote recycling and proper disposal of plastic materials. The province has launched multiple initiatives, which were all in line with China's action plan under the 14th Five-Year Plan. Take a look.
Hainan has prioritized a ban on the production, sale, and use of single-use, disposable, non-biodegradable plastic products. It's seen as a landmark project on building a national ecological civilization pilot zone. However, the plastic ban is not an all-or-nothing approach. Alongside the call for reduced use of disposable plastics, Hainan has continuously enhanced the production and research of alternative materials. According to the Provincial Department of Ecology and Environment, the province has achieved an annual production capacity of 133,000 tons of biodegradable alternatives.
I think it's very creditable that Hainan has taken this policy, and it makes a lot of sense because being an island, if you're promoting tourism, it makes sense to have these policies.
Since the implementation of Hainan's plastic ban, we have seen positive effects in promoting alternatives to single-use, non-degradable plastic products. It encourages more residents to bring and use their own reusable bags.
In recent years, Hainan has introduced and supported the fully biodegradable plastic products industry, establishing and transforming 20 plastic enterprises. The province has achieved an annual production capacity of 47,000 tons of film bags, 86,000 tons of dining utensils, and 35,000 tons of modified materials. In 2023, the province's market share of plastic alternatives reached 80.2%. Lin Wo, Sansha Satellite TV in Hainan for CGTN.
And that will do for this edition of Global Business on CGTN. I'm Lin Lu. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.
Hello and welcome to the weather forecast. I'm Tierney. Well, today we welcome the arrival of frost's descent. A solar term indicates the closing chapter of autumn and a wider coverage of winter season across China. Well, according to the climatic data, many major cities to the north of Yellow River will finish the seasonal transition from autumn into winter before or during the period of frost descent. Well, actually, the journey from white dew to frost descent appears intrinsically linked to the relation between water and temperatures. As the dew sparkles and crystallizes due to the chillness, we arrive at frost descent. So there's no wonder that the most typical weather pattern during the period of frost descent will be the rather frequent cold wave, particularly across the northern portion. Well, actually, many of us will embrace a rather chilly morning on Thursday. Notice that the sub-zero readings will be rather prevailing across the majority of northern portion of China. Even for the areas along the lower reaches of Yangtze River will experience the minimum temperatures dipping down to below 10 degrees Celsius. For instance, here 9 for both Wuhan and Nanjing, and only 7 here in the city of Hefei. However, in the meantime, daytime highs across the majority of China will probably grab an uptick trend over the next couple of days. The line of 20 degrees Celsius and high temperatures will be moving northwards even into the southern portion of Inner Mongolia. Many major cities will experience the high temperatures ranging between the upper teens and the lower 20s in the next couple of days. Enjoy the warmer high temperatures as well as you can.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our special program covering this year's BRICS Summit in Kazan, Russia, where leaders of the world's main emerging economies are gathering.
Great to have you with us. And in the following hours, we'll be bringing you the latest event going on in Kazan. And the narrow format meeting is being held at the Kazan Expo International Exhibition Center. Ahead of the meeting, BRICS leaders took a group photo. Russian President Vladimir Putin delivered an opening speech. And Chinese President Xi Jinping is expected to address this meeting. He has attended the BRICS Summit for 12 consecutive years, and this is the first summit since the BRICS expanded. It is expected to inject fresh energy into common development, solidarity, and cooperation across the global south. And following the latest development for us on the ground is our reporter Dai Kai, and he joins us live from Kazan. Kai, good to see you there. What are you learning there about the different formats of meetings going on at the Expo Exhibition Center?
That's right, Mama. I'm currently at the press center of the BRICS Summit in Kazan, Russia, and we've learned that the small-scale leaders meeting is currently going on. So Russian President Vladimir Putin said during the meeting that BRICS has had incremental positive influence to the stability of global development. He also said there are right now around 30 countries in the world expressing, showing their interests in either joining or further participating or cooperating with the BRICS group. But the expansion, he said, should not be a hurdle for lower efficiency. They will address that possibly in a summit's declaration in the following days. So Chinese President Xi Jinping is also attending the meeting. He's also going to address the meeting as well. As we talked yesterday, one key focus this year is further strengthening global governance. Major BRICS countries will continue to lead Global South in some of the key issues. And according to the BRICS official website, one of the key priorities of BRICS this year is integrating the new members into the framework. Areas of practical cooperation include boosting trade and direct investment, as well as fostering a balanced and equitable transition to a low-carbon economy. And during a meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin yesterday in Kazan, president of the New Development Bank, Dilma Rousseff, said at the moment the countries of the Global South are in great need of funding, and the conditions for obtaining it are quite complicated. He also said in a recent interview that the BRICS countries have already surpassed the G7 when measured by GDP. So many experts are saying that it is BRICS that offers emerging economies easier access to financial resources and better opportunities for trade, investment, and development. And also during a bilateral meeting with Vladimir Putin, Chinese President Xi Jinping said that the BRICS mechanism is the world's most important platform for solidarity and cooperation between emerging markets and developing countries. It's a pillar for realizing an equal and orderly multipolar world and a universally beneficial and inclusive economic globalization. And of course, we'll bring you more updates once they're available. Back to you in the studio, Mama.
Thank you so much, Kai, for that update, and we'll certainly keep following with you for the latest.
And for more analysis, let's welcome Li Yong, Chief Researcher at the DNC think tank, and Zhang Yongpeng, Senior Researcher, Research Fellow at the Institute of West Asian and African Studies at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. Gentlemen, fantastic to have both of you on our special program today. Mr. Li, let me start with you. It does look like the narrow format meeting is still ongoing, as pointed out by a reporter over there. Obviously, leaders are speaking very highly of the BRICS. Now, after 14 years, we're still waiting to find out what Chinese president will say or has said at the narrow format meeting. Mr. Li, help us understand the priorities of the BRICS Summit this year. Our reporter did touch upon this, saying that one of the priorities is about incorporating the new members into this group. What do you make of some of the major priorities this year?
I think, some of the priorities definitely would include cooperation, both in terms of trade, but also fighting the global challenges, including some of the geopolitical tensions, the food security issues, the climate change notably. And those, I think, actually used to be or has been the key priorities of the original members, which are present at the narrow meeting. And in the expanded meeting, I think, that is going to be a process of harnessing consensus, building understanding, and of course, based on those understanding and of course communications of the respective countries' concerns, interests, and requirements for development, I think those priorities will then be translated into a common ground, which I hope will find expression in some sort of a joint statement at the end of this summit.
Well, the BRICS has grown in size and representation, its influence as well. So how do you, Mr. Zhang, look into the priorities for BRICS countries, especially when this grouping, along with other groups in the world, are trying to deal a greater complexity in international affairs? What priorities stood out most to you?
And I think the priority most crucial should be to countering the solar, right? The unilateralism, we should say, the unilateralism or the hegemony and protectionism, right? And this should be the priority counter against, right? The first. And the second is try to make some consensus, and especially in promoting the trade, bilateral trade, or the trade between the members of the BRICS mechanism. And thirdly, and they could find out some, especially the financial system. And this has been quite a hot topic that's been mentioned repeatedly, time and time again before this summit meeting. And so I think maybe there should be some possibility, right, when the summit put it to an end, and there could be some, maybe some, at least some declaration in this point, and maybe also some agreement documents could be signed. Okay, most probably, I think in these kind of areas, right, we are looking forward to some of the results.
Yeah, we'll be looking out for those agreements or consensus reached between the partner countries and the member countries.
Gentlemen, do stay with us here on our program. We'll be back with you in a few moments. Well, meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin on Tuesday, Chinese President Xi Jinping emphasized the enduring friendship between their countries.
President Xi highlighted the deep historical ties between China and Russia, which remain strong despite global uncertainties. Xi praised the BRICS cooperation mechanism as a vital platform for emerging markets and developing countries, driving global equality and inclusive economic globalization. President Xi commended Russia for its role as the BRICS chair and expressed optimism about working with Putin and other leaders to strengthen strategic collaboration, promote unity, and seize new opportunities for the global south. He reiterated China's commitment to advancing the BRICS agenda and contributing to the shared future of humanity. He noted the upcoming BRICS Summit as the first with new member states, marking a milestone in expanding cooperation.
Chinese President Xi Jinping reaffirmed that China will always be a reliable friend and partner to Laos. Xi made these remarks during a meeting with Lao President Thongloun Sisoulith on Tuesday in Kazan. And during their meeting, Xi praised the progress made between the two nations over the past year in areas such as connectivity, trade, investment, and people-to-people exchanges. He highlighted the significance of China-Laos relations within China's neighboring diplomacy, expressing a commitment to strengthening strategic trust, deepening cooperation, and advancing the construction of a China-Laos community with a shared future. President Thongloun noted that bilateral ties are at their strongest in history. He acknowledged China's support in contributing to Laos' economic and social development and voiced his eagerness to continue collaborating on major projects like the China-Laos Railway and the China-Laos Economic Corridor. Both leaders are in Kazan for the 16th BRICS Summit and related meetings.
The Russian version of Season 3 of the classics quoted by Xi Jinping has been unveiled. China Media Group launched it at Kazan, where the BRICS Summit is underway. More than 300 well-known figures from Russian political, media, and educational circles are attending the event. The program will be broadcast on several Russian platforms, including all Russian state television and radio company. The show selected Chinese ancient books and classic sentences quoted in President Xi's speeches and articles. It focuses on the themes of reform and innovation, common prosperity, ecological and environmental protection, cultural inheritance, and civilizational diversity.
While experts and officials from various countries are looking forward to the 16th BRICS Summit, they say the summit will not only facilitate the development of BRICS cooperation, but will also provide new impetus for solidarity and cooperation among countries in the global south.
Top leaders of many countries will attend the 16th BRICS Summit, including China and Russia, which is very important. It proves that relevant countries are optimistic about the future of the BRICS mechanism. The China proposed Belt and Road Initiative brings many countries together to create a large number of new economic projects in areas such as logistics, trade, and investment.
The Global Development Initiative, the Global Security Initiative, and the Global Civilization Initiative proposed by President Xi have not only promoted China's development, but also made great contributions to the development of the world.
I am very much looking forward to the speech by the Chinese President Xi Jinping. I think that his speech will be very inspiring and will employ some of the Chinese wisdom that he's very famous for, especially in the field of security, development, but also civilizational dialogue.
Ahead of this year's BRICS Summit, CGTN spoke with South African Foreign Minister Ronald Lamola. He said China and South Africa built their ties based on mutual trust and benefit, and South Africa welcomes more Chinese investment and cooperation.
China, as you will be aware, in the last visit, the relationship between South Africa and China has been upgraded by President Xi into an all-round strategic partnership. Is a relationship of trust which is mutually beneficial, with the Chinese companies having invested a lot in our country. We are looking at beneficiation in our country, value add in South Africa, and also local manufacturing, which we believe can help drive our economy. And as South Africa is a gateway to the African continent, companies that invest in our country, they also have access to the continent as a whole. So we continue to welcome and invite Chinese companies to continue to invest in South Africa. They found it a very good, friendly business environment which they continue to participate in.
The BRICS group has gained significant attention in recent years due to its growing influence in global economies and politics. The expansion of the group represents a pivotal moment in international relations, reflecting the shifting dynamics of power towards emerging economies.
To become full members of BRICS.
On January 1st, 2024, the BRICS group welcomed 5 new members: Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. With the admission of these countries, the BRICS Plus now represents almost half of the world's population, a third of global GDP, a quarter of global trade, and 40% of global oil production. Each of the new members has a unique role to play in the bloc. Egypt and Ethiopia will bring more voices from Africa. They will lead more discussions on the region's stability, trade, and investment. Iran offers significant energy resources, especially in oil and gas. It also provides a perspective on Middle Eastern geopolitics, enhancing regional dialogues within the group. As one of the world's largest oil producers, Saudi Arabia will play a key role in global energy security discussions and foster economic diversification strategies. Its geopolitical influence in the Middle East allows it to provide insights into regional dynamics. The UAE is a major global financial and trade hub, particularly through cities like Dubai and Abu Dhabi. Its strategic location enhances connectivity between BRICS nations and global markets. The concept of BRICS originated in 2001 when economist Jim O'Neill coined the term BRIC to describe Brazil, Russia, India, and China as emerging markets with significant growth potential. The group's first official meeting took place in 2009, with South Africa becoming a member a year later, solidifying the BRICS framework. Over the years, BRICS has focused on economic cooperation, political collaboration, and cultural exchange, hosting annual summits to address global issues and foster dialogue.
Malaysia is bidding to become the latest member of the BRICS group, founded by Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. The grouping expanded earlier this year by adding Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia, the United Arab Emirates. This year's host, Russia, has invited Malaysia to attend October's BRICS Summit, something Malaysia hopes will be a stepping stone to full membership. CGTN's Ryan Meltzer reports from Kuala Lumpur.
Malaysia is already a member of key groupings such as the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, and the Non-Aligned Movement, as well as major trade pacts, including the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership and the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership.
And regardless of who has led Malaysia, the country has long pursued a balanced foreign policy, enjoying close economic and strategic ties with both the US and China.
The government and analysts believe BRICS is a good fit for Malaysia and vice versa.
We have done the cost-benefit calculation in terms of grand strategic returns to the country, and where we see BRICS is a natural platform for us to not only elevate our voice, our influence at the global level in terms of consolidating our position now as a middle power and as a stabilizing power in the region.
I think BRICS plays a very important role in connecting Malaysia with the global south, and Malaysia has long been championing the global south with our focus on the non-aligned movement.
Malaysia has plenty to gain and to offer BRICS economically too. It's a major trading country, an exporter of commodities. It also plays a critical role in the global electronics supply chain.
I think we would be able to benefit from BRICS through the potential opportunities arising from increased trade and investments with Brazil, with South Africa, some of the countries that Malaysia previously don't have much of an economic relationship with. Even economic relationship with Russia has not been very much. So I think BRICS will enable Malaysia to tap into opportunities.
All beneficial for Malaysia as it seeks to diversify both its import and export markets while gaining a stronger voice on the international stage. Ryan Meltzer, CGTN, Kuala Lumpur.
Over 30 countries have announced plans or expressed interest in joining BRICS, among them Turkey, which has formally applied. The move has caused concern for Ankar's Western allies, however. But for Turkish officials, it's all about the need to diversify alliances, as CGTN's Mahal Bardavid reports.
Turkey's request to join BRICS marks the first time a member of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, has applied to join the bloc. It's also the first time an EU candidate has applied for membership as well. Though negotiations to join the EU have stalled, causing frustration in Ankara, Turkey does have a customs union with the EU. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan made remarks on Turkey's bid to join BRICS as a NATO member upon his departure from the UN General Assembly in New York in September. He said, quote, "Being involved in these structures does not mean abandoning NATO. We do not think that this alliance and cooperation are an alternative to one another."
Turkey has demonstrated its ability to perform a delicate balancing act in diplomacy. The country has maintained positive ties with both Russia and Ukraine despite the ongoing conflict between them, showcasing Ankara's capacity to navigate relationships with different global powers. Erdogan also stated that joining the BRICS group could open new avenues for Turkey to enhance economic cooperation with its member countries. Currently, the EU is Turkey's largest trade partner, while China is its third largest. Ankara aims to increase its exports to China, particularly in agriculture. Analysts suggest that China may also be interested in boosting cooperation with Turkey.
China produces everything, so it sends a lot of consumer goods and things to Turkey. So there may be hope in China that it will be able to increase its investments in Turkey, again from a strategic rather than an economic perspective.
During the meeting of BRICS foreign ministers in September, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi urged the group's members to embrace multilateralism and promote an equal, orderly and multipolar economic globalization. The BRICS bloc is expected to discuss expansion during its summit in Russia later this month, and Turkey's potential inclusion could represent another step in strengthening multilateralism within BRICS. Michal Bardavid, CGTN, Istanbul.
And my colleague Tian Wei shares her first-hand observation from Kazan. Take a look.
I'm standing right outside the Kazan Expo International Exhibition Center, where the BRICS Summit is being held as we speak. Earlier, Chinese President Xi Jinping delivered a speech at a narrow format meeting among the BRICS leaders. Later, we're going to expect more speeches coming from the Chinese leaders and others participating in the BRICS Summit. Over the past few days, I've been traveling in Kazan here in Russia, talking to people from all walks of life and also from different parts of the world that are members of the BRICS countries. They're looking forward to the Chinese leaders' speech and also statements on some of the important issues. First of all, about multilateralism. What is likely to be the latest contribution by China for multilateralism, especially at a time when the Global South's efforts for global governance needs to be further enhanced, and also more fair share in the global governance system need to be provided to the Global South, which is already accounted for an important force of the world today. Secondly, the Global South, especially those members of the BRICS countries, are very diversified in their history, cultural background, economic development stages as we speak. Meanwhile, they're also facing their own sets of challenges individually. So how to unite the rally and also be able to come to consensus among the BRICS members as has been expanded. And meanwhile, BRICS Plus, there are those waiting in line willing to join the BRICS mechanism. What about their voices and their views to be coordinated into the concerted efforts of the BRICS? That is being expected from the Chinese leadership about what is China's view. Well, at the same time, we also see the pragmatic cooperation as well as strategic coordination being emphasized once and again in some of the bilateral meetings between Chinese leaders and others of the BRICS countries. For example, trade and economic development. China has been contributing to the world with the BRI initiative together with others. Members of the BRICS countries, many of them are participants of the BRI, and also they are having their own free trade mechanism with other economies. So how to coordinate better on green transformation, on agricultural development, on innovation, and other cooperation in the economic and trade fields are very much of great interest to those participating in the BRICS Summit. And also what China is doing about its own economy. As we know, there is still 1 quarter to go for the Chinese economy to going to the dashing line to complete its vision for the economic growth of the year. So people are looking forward to hear what China has in mind in order to speed up the economic growth with quality. And at the same time, we see there are hotspot issues in the world. Earlier, China and other BRICS members have been working together on some of the plans in order to ease the pain, so to speak, of the people, those involved in the hotspot issues. So what about now? What about China's vision for peace as a country that has been insisting on peace and non-interference in others' internal affairs? So all of these points are of great importance to many of those participating in the BRICS Summit. We're looking forward to hear more from China as well as others of BRICS leaders.
And let's catch up on some more conversations with our guests here in the studio. Mr. Li, the word Big BRICS has been gaining traction. I wonder, when you hear that word for the first time, what does that tell you? It has to refer to more than just the size of the organization expanding. And when we talk about wanting more representation of the Global South, when it comes to BRICS membership, is it the more the merrier situation? Are we likely to see more members joining in the near future?
Right. We are now seeing what is called the Greater BRICS, with 5 additional members joining the original 5. And that is what we call the BRICS expansion. And BRICS expansion has demonstrated the nature of inclusiveness or inclusivity of BRICS as an organization of the Global South. And it is also a frontal platform, for the Global South to, for example, to have their voices heard. And because of its influence, this platform has connections with the other groups like G2, G7, and there will be, and there is a desire, I think, for BRICS, G20, G7, to communicate and to coordinate on global issues on the basis that the voices from global South are heard, and that, I think, is very important going forward. Okay, we are seeing more countries who expressed interest or even filed in official applications to join the group. And that is because of the unique features of the group. Apart from inclusivity or inclusiveness, it is an open system, and it has an eye on helping the global South to catch up with the rest of the world in terms of, for example, in terms of economic development. And of course, BRICS has this unique feature. Unlike other, groups, it has its financial system mechanism. It has, the type of complementarity, and also the basic consensus, like the Xi Jinping defined the positioning of the partner relations, and all of those have become the cohesive elements of the organization that will attract, other countries, to join, with the hope that it will not just only improve their economic development conditions, but also contribute to the well-being and prosperity of the world. And to mention one more thing, China's experience can be shared with them, particularly the achievement and experiences of poverty reduction.
I agree with you when you talked about the expansion of the BRICS. It is becoming stronger and bigger. But my question is, Mr. Jiang, what more leverage or influence that's coming along with greater size, this wider representation in terms of its proportion in relation of global population and GDP?
I think up to now, the general or the gross capacity economy of this mechanism, the BRICS, has been accounted for. nearly 40% of the GDP has been the total part of the world. And the population is also nearly 20% or more, and we could just imagine that only the population of China and India has occupied quite a trunk part. And especially the newly comer of the participant of Egypt and Ethiopia, and also the population giant in African continent. And so with their participation, this BRICS mechanism could be collect a huge capacity of productivity also, or politically, right? They can produce a huge influence on the global, especially on the global governance. I think in this respect, it is quite important. And at the same time, we should notice that the major topic of the BRICS, and whether the previous BRICS meetings or this meeting, or summit or ministerial level meetings, one of the important topic or theme is on the multilateralism, and again countering the unilateralism, because we know that most of the developing countries have greatly benefited from the globalization. They need to cooperate with each other. So without globalization, we should know, just in the case of China, with no development of today's achievements for China. And so that is a very, very important, quite obvious fact that for any African countries or any developing countries, they need cooperation, they need exchange, they need trade, and they need investment. FDIs are crucially needed. And so by expanding this platform, this mechanism, that means what the multilateralism or democracy of the international order to some extent could be strengthened. That is the most important thing. And up to now, we know that along with the rise of the developing countries by groups, we know that except China and India and Brazil, Russia, and that there are quite a lot, some of the other developing countries are coming up economically. And so they need such a pure and unique, with only the developing countries joined platform or mechanism to coordinate with each other on an equal level, and without the participation of the developed countries, with the especially some unilateralistic countries, for example, the hegemony of the superpowers. And so this is a good opportunity for the mechanism to be expanded, but the process should be in a stable way and step-by-step, gradual way, not so in a hurry.
Yeah, integrating the development needs of a different country, yes. Member countries.
Mr. Zhang, Mr. Li, thank you so much. CGTN's Tian Wei met up with American economist Jeffrey Sachs to discuss the recent inclusion of BRICS' newest members, the strategic focus of the organization, and its pivotal role in shaping a multipolar world order.
Professor Sachs, what a pleasure to see you once again.
Thank you. Delighted to be with you.
Professor Sachs, what do you make of the significance of an expanded BRICS? 10 members now, and there are more waiting in the line to be joined.
This is a major geopolitical change, no doubt. Basically, these are very large countries. Of course, China, India, Brazil, Russia, South Africa, the original 5, and now many major new members of the BRICS, Iran, the United Arab Emirates, Ethiopia, Egypt. This is a group which includes nearly half the world's population, more than a third of the world's GDP. And there's a determination of this group not only to forge strong relations among the BRICS members, but also very strong relations of the BRICS members with all of the emerging and developing economies. There's also a determination to resist the kinds of pressures that have come from U.S. unilateral sanctions in recent years, and I think that the BRICS will basically demonstrate that it is not feasible any longer for the United States and its allies to impose these unilateral coercive measures, which are against international law, but until now, were hard to resist for individual countries.
We see an expanded BRICS. However, some argue the unity of the BRICS on some of the most important issues that is core to the existence of BRICS needs to be strengthened. Professor Sachs, what do you make of a more diversified and yet can be different members from one another within BRICS?
I think that the expansion of the BRICS is very helpful for the BRICS countries, but also, in my view, for the world. What we're seeing with the BRICS is the formation of a truly multilateral world. And we're seeing, because of the actions of the BRICS, the determination of the BRICS countries to say, look, we subscribe to the UN Charter, but not to the unilateral pressure of the United States or a few countries. And I think this is a correct approach. With more countries joining in, basically there will be more opportunity for an emphasis on peaceful, sustainable development, on cooperation of new financial flows, a new monetary approach as well. And while my hope always is that the world hangs together and doesn't simply fall into competing blocks, because that is very dangerous, I think the BRICS can be a stepping stone to a true global system, but a truly multipolar system, not the kind of US-led system that the United States has perceived for decades and is an idea that is way out of date. It was never really applicable, but it's certainly far from reality now.
What do you think, Professor Sachs, of the concerns some expressed about the nature of BRICS, whether it is a mechanism that is providing alternative, but at the same time, how to make sure it is not going to be a mechanism that is literally anti-West, or even more importantly, not being labeled as anti-West?
Well, I think the problem here is the U.S., for example, is, without any hiding it, anti-Russia, okay? It's not even close. The rhetoric out of the United States is literally defeat Russia on the battlefield. There's ugly rhetoric out of Europe, divide Russia into little pieces and so forth. I think from Russia's point of view, the BRICS is partly a solution to this, frankly, which is like-minded countries, very significant, very substantial, that have friendly relations and that want to handle matters not on the battlefield, but actually collegially and even finding common solutions to what has been a lot of bullying by the U.S. Now, I use these terms because though I'm an American, I've been saying to American government officials for decades, if you want other countries to use the US dollar, don't bully them, don't confiscate their currencies, don't freeze their reserves. And so what I'm saying is something I've been saying for a long time, which is that in a way, the US is pushing lots of the rest of the world together. It's not that they're coming together intrinsically in an anti-Western way. It's that the U.S. is putting sanctions all over the world. It's sanctioning a tremendous number of countries, dozens of countries. It vastly exaggerates its power, and it applies sanctions that the UN General Assembly has said for many decades are simply illegal, because sanctions should be approved by the UN or not used in this coercive manner. So I believe that the BRICS is, as long as the BRICS continue to say, which they have been saying, and I really call on them to continue to say it, that they stand for the UN Charter, that they stand for multilateralism, that they stand for peaceful cooperation. it's not fair to call them anti-Western. What they are is anti-coercion by the West. That's a quite different thing.
Professor, on the other hand, we also see some economies and countries interested in joining the BRICS or coming into the conversation of BRICS. However, we see some of them yet to make their commitment, even though they are some of the largest economies and emerging economies in the world. So how do you see this, shall I say, hesitancy, as some describe, among some of the countries about the nature of BRICS and whether they want to be part of it?
Well, part of it is the hesitancy comes from U.S. pressure directly. Don't join the BRICS. And so countries that are part of traditional U.S. security relations, for example, are being told, under no uncertain terms should you join the BRICS. And so that's where hesitancy comes from. They may feel that this is a good deal, that they want closer relations with China, that they want an expanded relationship, for example, with the Belt and Road Initiative, which I regard as an extremely positive and important global development initiative. And countries are benefiting from that close relationship with China. So they want to be part of the BRICS, but the United States often is saying, don't do that, that's against us, and so forth. Well, the main argument that is pushing many countries in the other direction is the kind of hostility and, I'm sorry to say, arrogance that has come from the US and its allies, for NATO, for example, for a long time. NATO's doctrine, its literal doctrine, Article 10 of the NATO Treaty, for example, on NATO expansion, is that NATO expansion is not the business of any third country. So if the US wants to expand NATO into Ukraine, it's literally under NATO doctrine, no business of Russia, even though it's all about Russia and it's on Russia's border. Well, that's a kind of arrogance or hubris that has led to this enormous backlash. Countries that are aiming to join the BRICS feel that they're not even listened to, and they face heavy costs from the US and its allies who take measures that are against their interests, that are even dangerous for them. They tell these other countries, don't trade with Russia, for example. And these countries say, but we have normal relations with Russia. The United States says, no, we will sanction you, we will punish you, we will cut off your banks, and so forth. That actually doesn't work. But that kind of bullying pushes other countries to want to join the BRICS.
Professor, I remember dearly recently you had a debate with Professor Mearsheimer. One of you are coming in from the political economic scholar's perspective, while he is more focusing on geopolitics and also diplomacy. You argued in your discussion that it can be a win-win situation among countries. Not necessarily one has to be the loser while the others will be the winner. Now, having said that though, how about the BRICS? We see earlier, BRICS have chosen a road more on energy, financial, trade, and economic cooperation, cultural exchanges, people-to-people exchanges, certainly as well, but not necessarily focusing much on geopolitics and security issues. What do you make of, Professor, of the strategic choices that BRICS made earlier about the spheres of the efforts it is concentrating on? And what do you make of the future that BRICS should and can stick to?
Look, I hope that when it comes to security, we actually keep the great security issues at the UN, in the UN Security Council, in the UN treaties, in the nuclear arms control framework treaties, which are UN treaties. I think it would be extremely dangerous the more we fall into military blocs. We know that such military alliances in modern history, for example, in 1914, went haywire. Countries were afraid or wanted to make preemptive actions, and suddenly there was essentially a global war. We need, at all costs, to avoid this kind of approach. I think the BRICS emphasis on payment systems, on finance, on trade, on scientific, technological, and academic, scholarly, and cultural exchange is wonderful. I think that the notion of keeping security in a UN context, but then making the UN effective, because it's not effective when the veto power really is a blockade to solutions, and in the end is a blockade even to real negotiations and deliberations. This is what I would hope for. So I really don't want to see, personally, I don't want to see the BRICS devolve into some kind of military alliance. My own view, which I state every day, is that the war in Ukraine could end in a day, today, if the United States would call off its plan to expand NATO. The war in the Middle East could end today if the UN Security Council would vote a sovereign state of Palestine as the 194th UN member state on the borders of the 4th of June, 1967. The risks in East Asia could end immediately if the United States would abide properly by the one China policy, and China and the United States would enter into normal diplomacy. All of these challenges that we face can be overcome. War is a disaster, obviously, and war between great powers is a threat to human survival in the nuclear age. So I don't want to see the BRICS become a military force. I don't think there's any intention of that. But at the same time, I would like to see a reinvigorated United Nations. Basically, the challenge is to solve all of these crises that we face diplomatically, to understand that they really are about politics. They really are about political decisions. They're susceptible of political compromise or political agreements, and war is not going to solve any of these issues, but war could escalate into complete global disaster. So that's my feeling. The BRICS is on the right course with the focus that it's taken.
Let's continue with our coverage of the BRICS Summit in Kazan, Russia. CGTN has a team of reporters on the ground in Kazan. We're now joined by reporters Dai Kai, Huang Fei, and Zhao Yunfei, all of them live from Kazan this hour.
Well, why don't we begin with Kai? We talked earlier in this program where the narrow format meeting was still going on. Any update on the progressions there in Kazan?
Well, that's right. I'm right now outside the press center of the BRICS Summit in Kazan, Russia. And from the small-scale leaders meeting that is still going on, we've learned that the Russian President Vladimir Putin said the BRICS has had incremental positive influence to the global stability and development. He said that there are currently around 30 countries showing interest in either joining or cooperating with the group. And that shouldn't be a hurdle, according to him, to the BRIC group's efficiency as well as consensus building. And that's why they will address that possibly in a final declaration in the summit this time. And he, of course, as we talked earlier, one of the key focus this year is further strengthening the global governance. Major BRICS countries will continue to lead global South countries in some of the key issues. And according to the BRICS official website, one of the key priorities is further integrating the new members into the framework. And areas of practical cooperation include boosting trade and direct investment, as well as fostering equitable and balanced transition to a low-carbon economy. And during a meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin on Tuesday, the president of New Development Bank, NDB, Dilma Rousseff, said at the moment the countries of the Global South are in great need of funding, and the conditions for obtaining that are quite complicated. That's why BRICS, according to many experts, offers emerging markets, developing countries easier access to financial resources and better opportunities for trade, investment, and development. And of course, it's expected that they will disclose further information later on in terms of the BRICS further expansion.
All right, Kai, appreciate that update from you. Let's now talk to Huang Fei, who is also joining us from Kazan. Huang Fei, a lot is happening today, both the narrow format and extended format meetings. We're monitoring them, of course, right here on CGTN. What have you been able to find out?
Hello, Zhengshi. I'm in the hallway of Kazan Expo, which is showing us live feeds of presidents and leaders of delegations arriving throughout the day. But of course, the one thing that I'm watching closely is financial reforms. That's the top of discussions over the past few days. And as soon as I arrived in Kazan, I actually had the opportunity to talk to members of the business community here in Kazan. Russian companies that are doing business with China, and they're telling me that the one thing that they're really watching out for is whether the leaders here at BRICS will be able to help them solve their biggest headache, and that is the difficulties of cross-border payment because of additional sanctions by the U.S. These banks that they're using to transfer money to China have been hit. And so this is one thing that's really, really on the top of their mind. So my colleague Kai mentioned NDB. The president of NDB is here. Of course, she's going to play a bigger role in solving that issue. And part of that is to create a new international clearance system using things like blockchain or digital currency. And also there are talks of creating a new emergency fund. This is a $100 billion investment fund that's saved for rainy days, for any financial crisis that may occur among member nations. This could be an alternative to IMF. But of course, BRICS is by no means trying to topple or overthrow the existing global financial architecture, but rather adding BRICS to it, making it more diverse and fairer for anybody to use.
Well, indeed, Huang Fei, China has been instrumental in advocating for reforms in the global economic governance, and we'll certainly follow that story. And now let's also talk to Yun Fei. Yun Fei, we know that a lot of reporters covering this event are reporting from the media center. The discussions by the member states leaders are taking place behind closed doors. Give a sense of what is happening where you are. What is the latest development there?
Sure, Mama. This Wednesday morning at the media center, the reporters from around the world have witnessed the group family photo of the BRICS member leaders. Of course, there are 9 of them, as President Lula is joining virtually. We are witnessing small-scale conversation among the BRICS leaders. And of course, also this morning, they will have large-scale meeting. President Xi Jinping, we're expecting, delivered a speech on Wednesday morning. We haven't got a detail on President Xi's speech, but according to the Chinese Foreign Ministry, President Xi is going to discuss practical cooperation and BRICS mechanism with his colleagues, as well as international affairs. Speaking of the BRICS mechanism, President Xi have met with President Putin yesterday, and what interesting enough is that both leaders mentioned about the 80th anniversary of the founding of the United Nations, as well as the anti-fascist war, and that will come in the following year. But both two leaders mentioned about that, and that really fulfills how the two countries really respect the UN-centered international system. Not only just today, besides the summit itself, we're also expecting leaders from non-BRICS countries arriving here in Kazan as they will be attending the BRICS Plus dialogue tomorrow. President Xi is also going to attend tomorrow's meeting. Well, among the leaders of arrival today, we're expecting Turkey President Erdogan. It's interesting that there's a leader from a NATO country also joining this kind of conversation. As you can tell, the inclusiveness of BRICS mechanism. So certainly, as the agenda suggests, people talk about mechanism for today, how to improve their relationship, and then further expand the friend circle. Back to you.
Yunfei, appreciate your reporting as well. Fascinating angles from our reporting team there on the ground in Kazan, Russia. Dai Kai, Huang Fei, and Zhao Yunfei, thank you so much for your reporting.
Thank you. Victoria Panova, head of Russia's BRICS Expert Council, says BRICS cooperation is based on mutual respect and fairness. She says China has always been a team player as it shares its growth with the rest of the world.
We are different from our counterparts in the West, where there are rigid types of social classes. Speaking of G7, the internal communications are not based on fair dialogues. It's more like one superpower gives orders and others follow. But the BRICS cooperation is entirely different. It's based on mutual respect, fair treatment, and shared interest. Dialogue and communication are at the core, which is very important because on the one hand, the BRICS countries tend to make long-term decisions, although they don't always get into the details. And on the other hand, those decisions will have long-lasting impacts. As for modernization, we have witnessed how China has changed tremendously over the past 30 years. China has filed 48% of the world's patent applications. And yes, China can share its technology breakthroughs like it is doing right now. At the same time, China never forced any other countries to adopt a certain political system. As far as I know, China has offered aid and support to 53 African countries in recent years, which has benefited about 10 million people. Their livelihoods have improved because of China.
Russian officials and analysts have high expectations for the BRICS Summit. TV BRICS, based in Moscow, spoke to several Russian experts and shared these interviews with CGTN.
Expectations are very optimistic. Why? Because first of all, we see that the BRICS is gaining momentum. More and more countries that either joining or declaring their intention to join. When it comes to customs cooperation, strategic directions for customs cooperation in the BRICS, they largely coincide with what we do here in the Euro-Asian Economic Commission. We expect that it may be possible in the future to establish such contractual relations on simplification of customs procedures. I think we should wish the BRICS to move towards such agreements.
Transport corridors are impetus to economic development for all agents. So it's a very good prospect for the BRICS, and not just in energy, where they already have almost half of the world's market share in oil and gas, but in all other areas. I would say probably transportation is one of the top priorities, and food security. There's a lot that BRICS countries can do in space development as well. For example, Russia has been one of the leaders there for a long time. China is definitely breaking into the leadership now. India works on launching satellites, and many countries can join in. So economic development will probably be based on these combination of interests and the creation of joint projects that all these countries are interested in.
There's another important circumstance why the discussion of environmental and climate issues must necessarily and inevitably get on the agenda of the summit. We realize that there's a lot of different, fairly tough negotiations ahead. The climate conference in Baku and global plastics treaty negotiations in Busan are coming. And of course, on the eve of these negotiations, the harmonization of the position of the BRICS countries would give our countries significant negotiating capacities.
Well, ahead of the BRICS Summit, we talked to Denise Christelle Sassou-Nguesso, Minister of International Cooperation and Promotion of Public-Private Partnership of the Republic of the Congo. He shares with us his understanding of what the BRICS can bring to countries.
Le concept tel que nous l'observons aujourd'hui.
In the concept as we observe it today, it is first of all a concept which aims to bring a certain number of developing countries, trying to counterbalance, so to speak, the Western model, the European model, and the North American model, through new mechanisms for state development. Today, many countries have already joined. In 2024, for example, we have seen the United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Iran, and I think even Ethiopia. And I think that the BRICS desire today is to bring about a different model. So today, it's up to the BRICS to present the model as it intends to make it available to the countries concerned in order to inspire a new form of development and cooperation between the countries. And it is precisely the initiative of summits such as the one in Kazan or even the last one held in South Africa that the countries will have the very quintessence of what this development mechanism represents.
And one of the successful initiatives of BRICS is the New Development Bank. The bank, also known as the NDB, was established in 2015 by Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, the founding members. It aims to mobilize resources for infrastructure and sustainable development projects in emerging markets and developing countries. In 2021, the NDB began expanding its membership and admitted Bangladesh, Egypt, the United Arab Emirates, and Uruguay as new member countries. Currently, the bank's total portfolio stands at $45 billion across more than 100 projects, with over half of the funds already disbursed. According to the NDB's strategy between 2022 and 2026, the bank aims to be recognized as a leading development bank, providing quality financial solutions for infrastructure. Climate change mitigation is a focus area. The majority of 40% of the bank's financing to be provided by 2026 has been reserved for green goals.
Well, more on the NDB now. Founded in 2015, the BRICS New Development Bank has been actively supporting infrastructure and sustainable development initiatives across various emerging economies and developing countries. In 2018, it approved a $300 million sovereign loan to support the construction of the first metro line in Luoyang, central China's Henan province. And CGTN reporter Xia Ruixue visited the city to see the latest progress.
Luoyang, one of China's oldest cities and the cradle of ancient Chinese civilization, seamlessly blends history with a modern infrastructure. With the support of a $300 million sovereign loan by the BRICS New Development Bank, the central Chinese cities launched its first metro line in 2021. The line has 19 stations, spanning a total length of over 25 kilometers.
The loan funds were fully utilized, enabling the Luoyang Metro to begin operations 9 months ahead of schedule.
The Luoyang Metro Line 1 project generated nearly 10,000 jobs, reduced carbon emissions by 32,800 tons on an annual basis, and transported 53.42 million passengers by the end of 2023. Earlier this year in February, officials and experts convened in Beijing to review the project's outcomes and lessons learned. According to an evaluation by the Independent Evaluation Office of the New Development Bank, the project was rated as successful. The bank said the project stands as a remarkable success, exceeding expectations in various aspects.
And this project itself has been quite a successful one, particularly in terms of enhancing mobility of communities, of people in the city of Luoyang, in terms of the business development around the metros that we have, that NDB helped finance in the city, but also equally critically the reduction in gas emissions, greenhouse gas emissions as a result of the construction of the metro.
The success of the project has strengthened foreign investors' recognition and confidence in investing in Henan, facilitating the province's ability to attract and utilize foreign investment more effectively.
It was the first transportation loan project granted by the New Development Bank to China, and the first collaboration between the bank and Henan province. Today, the New Development Bank stands as a cornerstone of the BRICS cooperation framework. With a focus on infrastructure, sustainability, and environmental protection, the bank plays a key role in driving growth across emerging and developing economies. The NDB has demonstrated a strong performance and has earned an international reputation, attracting increasing interest from Global South countries seeking to join its ranks.
The BRICS serves as a vital platform for fostering collaborations among emerging economies. Its initiatives in energy, trade networks, infrastructure projects help foster global prosperity. 夏瑞雪 CGTN 洛阳河南 Province.
Ahead of the summit, our reporter Xia Ruixue sat down with Ashwani Mithu, the Director General of the Independent Evaluation Office of the BRICS New Development Bank. He spoke about how the bloc has provided India with both development opportunities and enabled the country to pursue greater prosperity.
India is a founding member of the BRICS, and India takes the BRICS platform very seriously. And India is very, very committed to the success of the New Development Bank, which is a very concrete instrument for fostering development in the BRICS countries. So they play a very active role in the governance of the institution, and they accompany the developments of the bank very regularly and very with deep interest. So having said that, cooperation across the BRICS countries for India is fundamental, not only in terms of benefiting from the technologies and markets opportunities that other BRICS countries offers to India, particularly in the service sector for India.
Earlier this year, the BRICS group welcomed 5 new members, including Egypt. Our Chen Yuan sat down with one Egyptian entrepreneur for her views on what this means for the future of global governance.
This year's BRICS Summit marks a significant chapter in the group's history as it embraces its newest members, including Egypt. The bloc's expansion is expected to bring changes to global governance. To gain a fresh perspective, I spoke with Sarah Khattab, an Egyptian scholar and entrepreneur who has been based in Beijing for 5 years.
Well, Egypt has a very strategic position on the map. Egypt connects the whole world with the Africa. Egypt joining the BRICS. It's a huge step. It's a huge, huge step for Egypt and for all the other countries that actually finally they are getting all together for peace, for economic growth, for investment, for actually having a better world and to actually fix all the hard things that developing countries facing right now. They all to get together to solve this.
Khattab now leads a startup that promotes cultural exchanges between China and the Arab region. She says the BRICS expansion is accelerating cooperation efforts for entrepreneurs like her.
First of all, networking, finding people easier, having a common ground with all these countries. Second thing, the investment. For example, I'm here, a lot of Chinese people would love to invest in Egypt now just because of the BRICS, because now they know, okay, these countries together, then it gives us benefit. The BRICS give it more push to whatever is happening already right now.
While anticipation for economic cooperation builds, cultural exchanges are taking on diverse forms, including through food.
Yeah.
So recently, a game called Shawarma Legend has sparked increased interest in Middle Eastern cuisine. How do you view these cultural exchanges?
Well, it's first time to hear about this game, but when I heard about it, it's like actually very fun and like nice to hear about like that, because having these kind of games, you know, it makes countries get closer to each other, like it makes us closer together. Like I believe if we have also a Chinese game with the same concept, it will make Arab regions, Arab countries understand like the love of jiaozi or baozi for Chinese. So which one did you prefer, falafel or shawarma?
I like both. As BRICS expands its ranks, more countries and people are coming together with the hopes of building a multipolar world. Chen Yuan, CGTN, Beijing.
All right, let's continue the discussion with our guests here in the studio. Gentlemen, I do want to talk to you about representation of the Global South here. Mr. Lee, we talk about BRICS as a platform elevating Global South countries collectively. Can you give us some examples where BRICS succeeded in getting their voices across for the rest of the world and elevating the standing of the Global South?
Well, I think there are quite a lot of examples. For example, the the current, I would say, is a live example, because there will be a lot of advocates coming out of this, and there will be discussions about, for example, the reform of global governance, the reform of the trade regimes, the imperative for financial stability. Those are increasingly expressed, on many global platforms, fora, for example. So this has become a recognized, growing voice of the global south. And in these circumstances, and you can see the change of the other major groups like G20, like G7, and particularly in G20, and South Africa is going to chair G20 next year. So that, I think, is going to be a kind of a platform that both Global South and Global North, because if you see the membership, there was a mix of members from BRICS and also from the G7, and on those platforms, I think the BRICS member countries, they will represent generally the interest of global South, and they will voice their request for example, the reform of global governance, and the reform of global governance in the eyes of global South must take place. So there's actually a report published by Global Policy Watch. That is the title of it is The Future of Global Governance. They have, in this report, you can see the voices of Global South that is totally different, actually, with the Global North. And because, they are vulnerable groups of countries, and they are facing a lot more challenges in terms of development, and the current global governance cannot provide the needed mechanism for them to grow, and therefore, so they come up, with their voices demanding for the global governance reforms. That includes, as I said, trade regime reforms, financial system reforms, and that also contributed to the emergence of the new development bank, which has a totally different operating mechanism, with a particular, feature of inclusiveness, providing assistance, to less developed countries in terms of infrastructure, but also provide funding, for their desire, to fight against climate change.
One of the main objectives of the BRICS grouping is to, having this amplifying voice from the Global South and to really bridging the development gaps of member states. But we do know that countries are at different development stages and they have their different domestic agenda, priorities as well. Are countries necessarily on the same page, and do you see challenges when it comes to promoting the solidarity within the bloc?
I think in this respect, different countries have different national situations and conditions, and with different economic development level and stages. For the BRICS mechanism, I think the major tasks or mission for such a mechanism to obtain the consensus between the member states. Right, nations are just try to find out some, just like you mentioned, the bridges to gap, right, and or also on the aspect is find out the complementarity of their economic, and of course politically, they have had a great deal of consensus in lots of the aspects. For example, the international governance or multilateralism and cooperation, such and such. I think nowadays the most important to do this is try to push forward the international governance and try to bring as many of the developing countries, and especially first of all by the membership countries, to joining and participating in this process. And I think in this respect, comparing to the old political or economic international order, the most important for these membership countries is try to send out one voice from the mechanism. This is the most important, I think, up to now.
I mean, when you get a bigger group, the benefits are obvious, but the challenges are various. As we will see later with the expanded format meeting, it takes time for each and every one of them to make a case, to pitch their own case. How do we ensure this smooth cooperation now within a bigger group now? How do we make sure that everyone has something to gain now with a bigger platform?
Yeah, this is really a good question because, a lot of people are now talking about whether, a kind of a cohesion be established, with the new members coming in, and how they are going to coordinate the positions given the differences, both in terms of their stances, but also their specific economic and political conditions. However, I think the BRICS countries, have anticipated this and are prepared for this, and that I think is one of the top priorities of this summit, for the countries to come together and for the new members to understand, for example, the consistency of the BRICS priorities, future aspirations, what it will take, to establish the kind of a solidarity, and what are the expected roles that the old members and the new members together can play in terms of generally in terms of contributing to global economic stability, improving the well-being of the less developed countries. Most of them are part of those countries, and how we can take effective measures within the cooperation mechanism to achieve their respective goals, while at the same time their common interest. So those, I think, will be will be achieved through this summit and the ongoing communication, in the next couple of days.
30 plus countries are willing to join this bloc. And when we talk about the expansion of the BRICS, what are some of the benefits in terms of, for example, policy coordination, resource sharing, as well as propelling further construction of multilateralism?
So I think, first of all, the coordination of the policies and measures, and the coordination of some of the infrastructure connectivity or financial aspects, all of these aspects are most important. But I think what is more important is to gain from this mechanism for some membership nations. It still is not the issue. But what is important is this is the issue of cooperation instead of just gain from the mechanism, right? What or how can they gain, or how much can they gain from such kind of a cooperation mechanism? But how to cooperate with each other, how to complement with each other. I think in this respect, for the China-Africa Cooperation, the FOCAC mechanism, or together with the Belt and Road Initiative, could provide some very good examples or cases. For example, the cooperation between China and African countries has always should be based on the complementarity. And for African countries, for example, they are resource rich and usually concentrated on the mineral sectors. But for China, the mineral market is very, very huge, and China's development also requires lots of the importation of the mineral resources, and so they are complementary. And also, China's industrial system or supply chains are all in accordance with the African development stage or level, and so they have very strong complementarity. So this is a model of cooperation instead of just a simple gain, right? If you say gain, and how to find out where and how to gain and what kind of gain, right, we could have or make. So this is the absolutely within this mechanism, the cooperation and the complementarity, and finding out the differences between the membership nations, and then find out some opportunities to cooperate, to complement. For example, in the Chinese side, we have the advantages of capital and the technologies and the complete or comprehensive industrial supply chains. And so in this respect, we can offer to lots of the African countries to diversify their economies. And so so long with the African the countries could diversify their economy, their exportation, their trade capacity could be strengthened. And so this is a chain, just something that linked together, right, and affected each other closely.
Well, I think Mr. Zhang made a great point, saying that asking not only what one could gain, but asking how one could contribute to this mechanism. And in terms of doing their fair share for the development of the BRICS group, Mr. Lee, what are some of the advantages that countries could offer, including the founding members as well as the newcomers?
Each country has a different role to play. Take China, for example. China has the largest GDP, which is the accumulative GDP of the other 9 countries together. And China has accumulated over the past a few decades of economic reform and opening up experiences to develop the industries, the society, and particularly in the area of poverty reduction. And this is, China can contribute the experiences of manufacturing, industrialization, as well as modernization. And if you look at other economies, Russia, Brazil, they are the largest grain exporters. Okay, they can contribute to the food security of the world, and some other new members like Iran, like UAE, right, Saudi Arabia, the total export of the 3 countries accounted for 40% of global oil export. So they can contribute to the bloc, as well as to the world, energy security. So India, for example, they have...
Mr. Lee, we have to leave you there because we're watching live.
Dear colleagues, I would like to extend a warm congratulations to the convening of this summit. Thank you very much to President Putin for his considerate arrangements and hospitality as the host of this summit. I believe that under the joint efforts of all sides. This summit will contribute to pointing the directions of BRICS Plus cooperation and open a new chapter for the cooperation of the Global South. At present, the world has entered into a new stage of tumultuous changes. It faces crucial decisions. Do we allow the world to go through such tumultuous changes, or do we bring the world into order and stability? When a Russian writer wrote the famous classics of What Shall We Do, the enthusiasm and passion in that book is exactly what we need right now. The bigger the waves of the times are, the more we need to stand tall and brave on the ocean. We need to jointly write a new chapter of high-quality development for BRICS Plus cooperation. We need to establish a peaceful BRICS platform and be a force of stabilization. Human beings live in a shared community of future. Only when we practice the vision of common, comprehensive, cooperative, and sustainable security can we travel a track and journey of universal security. The Ukraine crisis is still dragging on, and China will join hands with Brazil and other countries of the Global South, and we have launched the group of friends for the Ukraine crisis, and we wish to gather more constructive voices, and we need to avoid the spillover of the battlefield and promote the mitigation of the situation. The humanitarian situation in Gaza continues to worsen, and there is conflict from Lebanon, and conflict between different parties are escalating. And we need to promote ceasefire and stop the genocide and work tirelessly for an early ceasefire of the Gaza crisis. And we also need to practice innovation at the BRICS platform and contribute to high-quality development. The new round of industrial revolution and transformation is ongoing, and we need to cultivate new driving forces. China has set up the China BRICS AI Cooperation Fund, and we are willing to engage in innovative cooperation with our side so as to unleash the potential of AI. China will work together with BRICS countries to deepen collaboration in deep-sea researches. And we also set up the BRICS China Special Economic Zone Research Center, the China Center for BRICS Industrial Capacity, and BRICS Cooperation Network for a Digital Economy. And we sincerely hope that you can be part of this mechanism so as to add more momentum and improve the quality of BRICS cooperation. We need to build green BRICS and practice sustainable development. Green is the backdrop of our times, and BRICS countries must integrate into the global trend of low-carbon transition.
China's EV, lithium batteries, and PV products, as well as other premium capacity, would provide the world with strong impetus. China stands ready to give role to our advantages and extend green industry scope with the BRICS countries, especially in the fields of new energy and green minerals and so on. Together, we would love to facilitate the greening process of the whole industrial chain. We would try to enrich the content of green development and the value of the industrial development. We stand ready to establish a just BRICS so as to become the leader of the global governance reform. The international competitiveness evolving, but global governance reform is lagging behind. We must practice the real multilateralism and observe the principles of sharing, co-construction, and negotiation, as well as the new concept of safety. With that joint efforts, we would love to lead the global governance reform, and we must improve the representation and the voice of the Global South. Under the current circumstances, the international financial structure reform is incumbent. The BRICS countries must play a pioneering role to deepen our financial cooperation and promote the financial infrastructure connectivity. We must safeguard the high-level financial safety. We must develop the new development bank on a larger scale and encourage the international financial system to better reflect the new international landscape. We must develop a civilized BRICS and be the champion of the coexistence of all civilizations. The BRICS countries have a splendid culture and profound histories. We must actively champion the call for the coexistence and inclusiveness of all civilizations, and we must exchange our experience in national governance. As to education, sports, arts, we must also dig the potential of our partnership so that all sorts of civilizations could reinforce each other and light up the road ahead of us. Last year, I proposed the Digital Education Cooperation initiative between BRICS countries, and I'm pleased to see that this mechanism is already put onto the ground. China would implement the Digital Education Capacity Building initiative. In the next 5 years, among the BRICS countries, we would set up 10 overseas learning centers. For 1,000 educators and faculties, we would provide training opportunities so as to assist BRICS countries in the people-to-people and cultural exchange in a solid way. Dear colleagues, China stands ready to join hands with BRICS to engage in the high-quality development landscape of the BRICS Plus so as to pursue community of shared future for men as a whole.
Chinese President Xi Jinping speaking at the expanded format meeting at the BRICS Summit in Kazan, Russia. Basically, the president laid out his vision for what the BRICS should be, saying that we should build BRICS into a peaceful BRICS, an innovative BRICS, a green BRICS, and civilizational BRICS. These are the key aspects that he has emphasized in his address at the expanded format meeting.
Right, and he also mentioned the construction of a just BRICS and calling countries to really come together to bring the world back to order and stability. And we want to get some thoughts from our guests right here in the studio. I want to talk about this BRICS Plus approach, which was proposed by President Xi Jinping back in 2017 in this summit in Xiamen, where really BRICS further opened the door for more countries, integrating more developing nations to come to this cooperation mechanism. So what more impetus could this BRICS Plus mechanism bring to countries that are already in this club and also those are interested in joining?
Right now, I think there's been already kind of arrangement to enable, for example, the BRICS to create some sort of a framework to engage those number of countries in, for example, trade reform initiatives, development financing, green development, technological cooperation, and so on and so forth. That being said, BRICS, even though some of the countries are not have not been accepted as an official member, but they still have a lot of opportunities to interact and to take advantage of the current mechanism, to benefit from it. And that is a demonstration of a open, inclusive BRICS. And of course, from Xi Jinping's speech, what stood out was the description of the expectation, his expectation of the BRICS to become a high-quality BRICS. So high quality means not just the high-quality development of the BRIC member countries, including those 5 new members, but also I think it is going to have a spillover, positive spillover, to the countries who will rally around the BRICS and contribute and share, to the development of the BRICS aspirations. So I think this is what the BRICS is going to bring, and I have developed a 5-word. I use BRICS to describe what the BRICS are going to bring to us. A, balanced. Okay, that I think it is going to balance all the needs and the requirements, and also the power between the global South and North. R means relevance. As an acronym, R is relevance. So there will be increased relevance of global South in the global affairs. Okay? And then R actually means inclusiveness. Okay? Inclusive means that the BRICS is inclusive, is open, and that is going to be distinguishing characteristics. And C is obviously for cooperation, and S is for support. Okay, that the BRICS countries can provide within the member countries, but also to other countries that are keen in joining the bloc.
Mr. Zhang, I want to come back to your thoughts on that address by the Chinese president just now. I think the key word there really is vision. That address was very concise, but it was very profound, showcasing a summary of what BRICS as a group has become since 2010 when it first started just as an economic alliance, now has encompassed all of these great pillars. We're talking about calls for peace, we're talking about a focus on innovation, going green, and encouraging civilizational and cultural exchanges between different countries. What is your understanding of what this concept encompasses as demonstrated by the Chinese president?
I think for President Xi's speech just now, all of these aspects is being based on his judgment on the international situation or order. That is, first of all, he once mentioned that is a unprecedented upheaval spanning the one century and 100 years or even more 100 years. That is to say, up to now, one of the great change is the rise of the groups of developing countries, and especially headed by maybe the major developing country is China, and secondly, that is full of the international challenges, the global challenges, and whether for we could know the climate change or food security or some of the medical pandemic cases or something like that. And thirdly, we could see now there's a very heat competition between the hegemony and the superpower, right, and the developed economies and between the developing economies. And so especially we could see, especially China, we could feel the oppression from the United States, and this could be right, has been described by the U.S. side as the powers competition. And thirdly, all of the developing countries are just facing some tasks to develop themselves. And in this respect, the most important is how to counter the deglobalization tendency and try to accelerating the tendency of multilateral cooperation. And so it was under or is under such kind of judgment. President Xi put forth the future vision or the future mission for the BRICS mechanism to cooperate. And for example, the future technology is especially the green development, the digital technologies, and especially up to now, actually in all of these aspects, we have conducted the cooperation with even the African countries, the satellite technologies, right? So there are quite a lot of the others that was mentioned by the innovation, right? Innovation centers or the financial cooperation.
And then the AI cooperation.
Yes,
fund.
and especially the AI cooperation, which is leading the frontier of the technology in the scientific aspects of the world. And so I think in future, this mechanism should be aimed at such kind of areas, advanced areas, right? To not to let any of the member states behind.
Sure.
I think yes.
Mr. Zhang Yongpeng and Mr. Li Yong, thank you so much for sharing with us your analysis, and for Mr. Li for coming up with this new acronym for remembering BRICS. Appreciate your insights.
Thank you.
And with that, we come to the end of this special program on the BRICS Summit in Kazan, Russia. The expanded format meeting is still ongoing. We'll be sure to keep you posted on anything that comes out of the meetings there. But for now, thank you so much for watching. I'm Zhong Shi.
Thanks for watching, and CGTN will certainly keep you updated on all the other events unfolding in Kazan today and tomorrow.
Bye-bye.